Are you truly our child? My father's incredulous gaze met mine, scrutinizing my report card as it lay open before us. Growing up amidst a family of esteemed physicians, I had always assumed that following in their footsteps was my destined path. Thus, from childhood, I diligently applied myself to my studies, consistently ranking at the top of my class. Yet, to my father, a doctor himself, mere excellence at a local level fell short of his expectations. In his eyes, success had to transcend the national stage to hold any true merit. Repeatedly bombarded with this lofty standard, my reverence for the medical profession gradually eroded. My name is Sophia, born into a lineage of doctors. Alongside my older sister, Julia, we were the progeny expected to carry forth the family legacy. Unlike me, Julia effortlessly excelled, basking in the favoritism of our parents. Her every accomplishment was celebrated, and her slightest whim indulged. I couldn't help but envy her privileged status. Constantly measured against Julia's towering achievements, I was consistently found lacking. Despite the 5-year age gap between us, my inability to mirror her successes was perceived as a personal deficiency. Over time, my parents' attention waned, diverted entirely towards Julia's pursuits. Even in moments of stress, Julia's verbal assaults and occasional physical outbursts went unreported for fear of disbelief. Enrolled in a prestigious college preparatory school, I harbored no aspirations of pursuing higher education. Enduring relentless verbal abuse, I made the decision to leave home, securing a part-time job to sustain myself. After graduating from high school, I found solace in employment at a tourist hotel, free from the toxic environment I once called home. 6 months passed without contact until an unexpected call shattered my solitude. "Come home for the New Year celebration," my father's voice commanded, leaving no room for negotiation. Tradition dictated the reunion of our doctor-dominated relatives, a daunting prospect for me. With the weight of familial obligation bearing down on me, I acquiesced, returning for a single day. I juggled my obligations at the hotel amidst the bustling season. At home, I was thrust into the role of the dutiful host, overseeing preparations for the annual gathering. Amidst the chaos, I questioned why this burden consistently fell upon me. Yet guilt over my divergence from the family profession kept me tethered to their expectations. Though I had hoped my departure would sever ties, my father's summons proved otherwise. For now, I would honor the familial tradition, even if it meant enduring one more painful reunion. I had meticulously planned my homecoming to be swift, using my job as a convenient excuse. However, upon arrival, my father's booming voice shattered my resolve. "You're late. Everyone's arriving soon. Why didn't you come back yesterday?" he scolded, dismissing my work obligations as mere excuses. Rushing past his reprimand, I entered a house devoid of any semblance of comfort. I dutifully carried out my assigned tasks under my mother's watchful eye, devoid of any sense of relief in returning home. As relatives gathered and festivities commenced, I remained on the periphery, a familiar outsider to familial banter. Amidst the chatter filled with hospital grievances and patient gossip, I couldn't shake the feeling that the medical profession bred nothing but contempt for others. Julia, reveling in her superiority, mocked both colleagues and patients alike. When confronted by Christopher's taunt about my apparent failure to become a doctor, I bit back the retort bubbling within me, unwilling to engage in such draining exchanges. Under the veil of night, I made my escape from the suffocating confines of my family home. Their complaints about future chores and obligations fell upon deaf ears as I prioritized my return to work. Boarding the bus with no change of clothes, I left behind the annual charade, content to maintain the fleeting connection with my family. For 7 years, this ritual persisted unchanged, a single day of obligatory reunion. Despite my divergence from the expected path, my parents had supported me through schooling, albeit without a college degree. With each passing year, my annual visit remained a mere formality, a brief interlude in my otherwise independent life. As the familiar time of year approached once more, I braced myself for the inevitable call from my father. Yet, when the phone finally rang, it wasn't his name that flashed across the screen, but an unexpected call heralding an unforeseen twist in our annual tradition. I hesitantly pressed the call button, surprised by the rare occurrence of a call from Julia. Anxious thoughts raced through my mind as I answered, fearing the worst about our parents. However, contrary to my apprehensions, Julia's voice came through the line with an unexpected buoyancy. "Hey, you know that young CEO from your workplace? He's been all over TV lately, haven't you noticed?" Her excitement was palpable, a stark departure from her usual demeanor. I struggled to comprehend her sudden change in attitude, unsure of where this conversation was headed. I tentatively responded, acknowledging the CEO's recent media presence due to the opening of new hotels. But before I could fully grasp the situation, Julia eagerly interjected, expressing her interest in meeting him. "Introduce me to him. I've fallen head over heels for him ever since I saw him on TV. Plus, he's a young master, isn't he? He'd be perfect for me." Stunned into silence, I blinked, trying to process her audacious request. Caught off guard, her aspirations seemed completely incongruent with reality. How could someone as arrogant as Julia believe she could captivate the attention of someone like him? Before I could formulate a response, Julia continued, steamrolling over any objections I might have. "You're a worker. You probably haven't even met him. And even if you have, a plain woman like you wouldn't stand out to him." Her words cut deep, but I remained silent, unable to interject amidst her relentless monologue. As she rambled on, I attempted to interrupt, but Julia's momentum was unstoppable. Her presumptuousness knew no bounds as she casually informed me of her plans to stay over when the CEO visited, confident in her ability to win him over with her beauty. I struggled to find my voice, bewildered by Julia's audacity. "But Julia, aren't you supposed to be considering arranged meetings for marriage? It's our family tradition to marry by 30. My feeble attempt to reason with her was met with dismissive laughter. "Traditional arrangements are so outdated, don't you think? Besides, why settle for anything less when I can aim for the top?" she scoffed. Her words hung in the air, leaving me speechless. As she casually requested that I cover her lodging expenses, I realized the futility of trying to reason with her. With a heavy heart, I resigned myself to the absurdity of the situation, dreading the inevitable clash between Julia's fantasies and reality. I was taken aback by the mention of arranged meetings. Hadn't Julia already undergone that process? The thought of it left me disheartened, knowing the limited pool of suitable candidates. Just the other day, I was introduced to a third 35-year-old man as a potential match. His suitability left much to be desired, leaving me with a sinking feeling. Observing Julia's disdain for her arranged meeting partners only added to my disappointment. But her contempt for tradition didn't mean I was obligated to introduce her to Alexander. "I'm sorry, but that's not feasible," I firmly informed her, ending the call. A month later, I begrudgingly returned home for New Year's Day, intending to fulfill my familial duties before making a swift exit. However, this year, my relatives seemed unusually fixated on my employment at the hotel. "Working at a hotel, Sophia? I'm surprised you can handle such a menial job," Christopher remarked, echoed by Mom's impressed tone about my ability to manage a job deemed less essential than theirs. Even Dad chimed in, expressing relief that my absence spared him from neighborhood gossip. The weight of their collective disappointment washed over me, confirming what I already knew. I was considered an embarrassment. Julia's laughter only added insult to injury, her mockery cutting deep. But her words ignited a fire within me. In that moment, I shed the facade of compliance and unleashed pent-up emotions. "Julia, you're 30 years old, 5 years my senior. What's your plan? With such lofty expectations, you'll find yourself left behind," I retorted, fueled by frustration. My outburst incited fury from Dad, demanding an apology, yet their unwavering support for Julia remained unchanged. She was their golden child, and I was merely an afterthought. If that was to be my reality, then so be it. I longed for our family of 3 to remain together forever, but the reality was far from my wishful thinking. Despite Daddy's escalating rage, I sighed inwardly, knowing my sentiments would only stoke his anger further. "What's with that attitude? Who do you think raised you? Daddy's voice boomed, punctuated by Mom's solemn nodding. The echoes of their disapproval were mirrored by the relatives, their collective consensus a suffocating weight upon me. Fed up with the stifling atmosphere, I braced myself to speak, only to be met with Daddy's cutting remark, branding me a failure who brought shame upon our family. His mocking expression fueled my resolve as I gathered my belongings, ready to depart. I won't be returning after this year, I declared firmly, my words hanging in the air as I made my way to the exit. Expressing gratitude for everything up until now, I stepped outside, the weight of my decisions settling upon me. As I reached the door, the sound of a car pulling up outside caught my attention. Peering out, I spotted a luxury car parked nearby. My parents and Julia emerged, their curiosity piqued by the arrival. To my surprise, the driver was none other than Alexander, the president of my company, the very person Julia had urged me to introduce. With a smile, I apologized for the delay, explaining that I was just leaving. "It's about time," Alexander replied, his smile hinting at an understanding that transcended words. With a casual farewell, I left my stunned family behind, their shock palpable as Alexander approached Daddy, leaving me to wonder about the unforeseen turn of events. "I apologize for the delayed greeting," I began, before leaning in close to Alexander. "He's my fiancé. We're getting married next month." The announcement hung in the air, met with a mixture of surprise and disbelief. Huh. Was that Julia's voice, my parents', or both? I chuckled. Though my intention to invite them to the wedding was non-existent, with no lingering attachment to this house, I doubted I'd ever return. It became evident that this wasn't the place for me after all. After Alexander's proposal, I felt compelled to explain my situation to him, shedding light on the strained dynamic within my family. His understanding was immediate, especially after hearing about the hospital's tarnished reputation, a subject Julia had also broached. Ignoring my family's stunned reactions, I continued divulging my involvement in a new hotel project near Daddy's hospital. During local research, unsettling truths about Daddy's facility surfaced, multiple medical malpractices and scams. Daddy's face paled at the revelation, and I couldn't help but question his involvement. "Are you sure it's okay?" I pressed, referencing Julia's association with the hospital as well. According to locals, their reputations were the worst, a damning reflection on our family. The weight of the situation settled heavily upon us. The phrase, like father, like daughter, seemed to hang in the air, casting a shadow over our family's integrity. Feeling somewhat responsible, I expressed my determination to succeed in the hotel business and restore faith within the community. In stark contrast, Daddy and Julia appeared visibly shaken, their once assured fates crumbling under the weight of scrutiny and realization. I confided everything in my fiancé, Alexander, who, without unnecessary interruption, simply opened the passenger door. Our paths had crossed right after I left home, under the previous president's administration. Alexander, then the future president, worked alongside me in the field, and our camaraderie blossomed into a close friendship. It was later revealed that he had fallen in love with me at first sight. In stark contrast to past experiences of being overlooked, my hard work was finally recognized and appreciated. I took pleasure in my efforts, and Alexander seemed to admire that quality. When the opportunity arose, he stepped up as president after the previous one fell ill and proposed to me 6 months ago. His request for my support resonated deeply with me. Since accepting his proposal, I've delved into various areas of study, particularly focusing on business. I discovered a newfound enjoyment in learning, realizing that my aversion wasn't to studying itself, but rather to the narrow path I felt pressure to follow in becoming a doctor. Each new subject I explored only fueled my curiosity further. As I prepared to step into the car, Daddy's voice pierced the air with a familiar question. But with a smile, I calmly declared, "I'm no longer a daughter of this house. Goodbye." With that, I left my bewildered family behind, the car silently whisking me away. In the wake of the successful opening of the new hotel, I found myself engrossed in on-site management from day one. When the establishment reached full occupancy, my parents and Julia made an unexpected appearance. Daddy, spotting me amidst the bustle, called out, signaling their intention to stay. Despite my busy schedule, I found myself at a loss for words. Before I could react, Alexander intervened swiftly, escorting my family away. However, their stubborn persistence caused a scene in the lobby, leaving me torn between professional obligations and familial tensions. Feeling stuck in the midst of chaos, I sought assistance from a security guard to quell the escalating tension. Shortly after, a woman named Ruby entered the lobby. Recognizing me, she relayed the latest gossip. Rumors had spread like wildfire throughout the hospital, causing embarrassment for Daddy and Julia. Meanwhile, I stumbled upon a startling revelation about Mom's purported retirement. It turned out to be a cover-up for her forced resignation due to a scandal, a tidbit of information I accidentally overheard from Ruby. Frustrated by my family's repeated audacity, I took decisive action during their unwelcome visit to my workplace, promptly calling the police for obstruction of business. Their past behavior soon became the talk of the hospital, exacerbating its already dire financial situation. Eventually, the hospital was forced to close its doors, a consequence of the scandal and ensuing rumors. Not long after, passing by my family's former home, I noticed its vacancy, a poignant sign of their financial distress. Rumors circulated about Julia's failed matchmaking endeavors, perhaps spurred by the local gossip that ultimately drove them away. With a changed phone number and no intention of reconnecting, I severed ties with my family for good. With the successful launch of the new hotel and my upcoming wedding to Alexander, both my professional and personal life are on an upward trajectory, brighter than ever before.
Welcome to my channel. Support our channel by subscribing. Your subscription helps us grow and create more intriguing content like this. Now, let's dive into today's story. A 47-year-old woman who recently lost her husband, Paul, after a long battle with illness. Christine works as a nurse at a local hospital in Vancouver, a job that has kept her busy and emotionally invested in helping others. She had been married to Paul for 22 years, and they shared a deep love and respect for one another. After Paul's death, Christine found solace in holding on to the small tokens of their life together, most notably, Paul's wedding ring. The ring had always been a symbol of their commitment, love, and the family they built. Christine's daughter, Megan, a 24-year-old aspiring graphic designer living in the same city, was excited about her upcoming wedding to her fiancé, Dylan, a 26-year-old software developer. Megan had been very close to her father, and the idea of using his wedding ring for her own wedding felt to her like the perfect way to honor him. However, when Megan requested to wear her late father's wedding ring for her own wedding day, Christine was faced with an emotional dilemma. Christine had always planned to keep the ring as a cherished reminder of Paul, and the idea of giving it away didn't sit well with her. For Christine, the ring was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was the final connection she had to the love of her life. Megan, on the other hand, didn't see the same attachment to the ring, viewing it as an important keepsake to wear on the most important day of her life. Megan, excited about her upcoming wedding, approached Christine with an unexpected request. She wanted to wear her father's wedding ring on her own wedding day. Megan had always looked up to her father, and the idea of having something tangible to represent his presence at her wedding seemed very important to her. She imagined the ring as a way to carry her father's love with her into her own marriage. Megan was planning a lavish wedding with her fiancé Dylan, which was already putting a financial strain on both families. She didn't see the problem with using the ring as a sentimental touch. Megan, who worked as a junior graphic designer, was financially supported by her parents for the wedding, but she also wanted this specific gesture from her mother. For her, the wedding ring would not just symbolize her connection to her father, but also serve as a beautiful tribute to the bond they shared. However, when Christine refused, Megan felt hurt and betrayed. She couldn't understand why her mother wouldn't be willing to give up something so meaningful to her, especially when it would make Megan so happy. She didn't see how it could possibly be wrong to wear her father's ring, and she started to feel that Christine was being selfish and overly sentimental about the past. Christine's refusal to give the ring to Megan sparked a growing tension between mother and daughter. Megan, feeling rejected and misunderstood, became upset. She believed her mother was being unnecessarily possessive of something that, in her eyes, had little value beyond a symbol of her parents' love. Megan tried to explain how much the ring meant to her and how it would bring her closer to her father on her wedding day. But Christine remained steadfast in her decision. Christine, on the other hand, struggled with her own emotions. Losing Paul had been devastating, and the ring was the last remaining piece of him. For her, the idea of giving it up was like losing another part of him. She felt a deep emotional connection to the ring and couldn't imagine parting with it. The more Megan pushed for the ring, the more Christine's sense of loss and grief resurfaced. The refusal caused a rift between them, and Christine feared that the bond they had shared was beginning to crack. The situation became even more complicated when the family dynamics shifted, with Christine's mother-in-law, Elaine Day, getting involved. Elaine, 72, a retired teacher and Christine's late husband's mother, quickly sided with Megan. She viewed Christine's refusal as a sign of emotional immaturity and a reluctance to let go of the past. Having been widowed herself, Elaine believed it was time for Christine to move on and let go of sentimental attachments. She felt that Megan, as the next generation, deserved the wedding ring as a symbol of her connection to her late grandfather. Elaine's influence over Megan intensified the pressure on Christine, as she began to feel that not only was she being criticized by her daughter, but now her mother-in-law was also attacking her emotional stance. Christine's refusal to give the ring to Megan sparked a growing tension between mother and daughter. Megan, feeling rejected and misunderstood, became upset. She believed her mother was being unnecessarily possessive of something that, in her eyes, had little value beyond a symbol of her parents' love. Megan tried to explain how much the ring meant to her and how it would bring her closer to her father on her wedding day. But Christine remained steadfast in her decision. Christine, on the other hand, struggled with her own emotions. Losing Paul had been devastating, and the ring was the last remaining piece of him. For her, the idea of giving it up was like losing another part of him. She felt a deep emotional connection to the ring and couldn't imagine parting with it. The more Megan pushed for the ring, the more Christine's sense of loss and grief resurfaced. The refusal caused a rift between them, and Christine feared that the bond they had shared was beginning to crack. The situation became even more complicated when the family dynamics shifted, with Christine's mother-in-law, Elaine, getting involved. Elaine, 72, a retired teacher and Christine's late husband's mother, quickly sided with Megan. She viewed Christine's refusal as a sign of emotional immaturity and a reluctance to let go of the past. Having been widowed herself, Elaine believed it was time for Christine to move on and let go of sentimental attachments. She felt that Megan, as the next generation, deserved the wedding ring as a symbol of her connection to her late grandfather. Elaine's influence over Megan intensified the pressure on Christine, as she began to feel that not only was she being criticized by her daughter, but now her mother-in-law was also attacking her emotional stance. Elaine's opinion carried weight, as she had always been a dominant figure in the family, and Megan trusted her grandmother's advice. Elaine didn't hesitate to tell Megan that her mother's refusal to give up the ring was selfish, that Christine was holding on to something that had no practical value anymore. This created even more friction. Megan, already hurt by her mother's refusal, began to see her mother's actions as an obstacle to her own happiness. The situation soon escalated, with Christine feeling cornered and isolated by the two most important women in her life. The pressure became unbearable, and Christine felt increasingly alienated and misunderstood. Christine's frustration reached its peak when she felt that both Megan and Elaine were pushing her into a corner, disregarding her emotional needs. She had already contributed a significant amount of money toward Megan's wedding, but the emotional toll of the situation made her decide to stop funding the wedding. She felt that continuing to do so would only enable her daughter's sense of entitlement, and it would allow the emotional manipulation from Elaine to continue unchecked. Christine calmly explained to Megan that she could no longer fund the wedding, not out of spite, but because she could not support a wedding built on disrespect and manipulation. Megan was furious, accusing her mother of being petty and vindictive. The two women had a heated argument, and Megan threatened to cut ties with Christine if she didn't change her mind. The decision to stop funding the wedding was a final, painful step for Christine. She hoped that it would force her daughter to understand the deeper reasons behind her refusal, but it also pushed their relationship to the brink. The fallout from Christine's decision to stop funding the wedding was immediate and severe. Megan, feeling betrayed, cut off communication with her mother for several weeks. She became consumed with anger, blaming Christine for ruining her special day. Elaine, now fully aligned with her granddaughter, criticized Christine's actions to anyone who would listen. The tension within the family grew, and Christine found herself isolated, both from her daughter and her mother-in-law. Christine, heartbroken and emotionally drained, questioned whether she had made the right choice. The financial implications were significant, but it was the emotional cost that weighed the heaviest. The once close relationship she had with Megan was now a battleground. Christine feared that she might lose her daughter forever, but at the same time, she was firm in her belief that she had to set boundaries in order to preserve her own emotional health. The fallout continued, with both parties hurting, unable to come to terms with the situation. The story concludes with an open-ended resolution. While there is no immediate reconciliation, Christine hopes that time will allow her daughter to reflect on the situation. She hopes that one day Megan will understand that her refusal wasn't about being selfish, but about holding on to precious memories. Christine remains open to rebuilding their relationship, but she knows that it will take time for both her and Megan to heal. The emotional scars remain, but Christine's decision to stand her ground, despite the cost, was a necessary step in finding her own peace. Megan, on the other hand, might eventually come to see her mother's side of the situation. After her wedding, she might realize that there are other ways to honor her father's memory, ways that don't require the wedding ring. In time, both mother and daughter may find a way back to each other, but it will be a long and difficult road. Christine hopes that with patience and understanding, their bond can be rebuilt, and the love they shared can once again be the foundation of their relationship. You're welcome. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found the story helpful. Feel free to reach out if you need anything else.
Cheating wife's devious plot to eliminate me for wealth backfires as I uncover her scheme. Why do the wicked thrive while the honest suffer? It's because most people are generally decent and truthful. We trust others to act the same, leaving us vulnerable to those who deceive without remorse. Gina Giannopoulos, now Gina Giannopoulos McMillan, showed me this hard truth. I'm Alex McMillan, her ex-husband. One day my Lexus had engine trouble. Dominic, who serviced my cars for a decade, called me in for a talk, leading me to a private office at Marshall Motors. Alex, the engine's fine, just the belt's loose, but there's a problem with the brake line, Dominic said gravely. It's been tampered with. There's enough fluid for normal stops, but if you needed to brake hard or go down a steep hill, it could have been disastrous. I was stunned. 6 months ago, Gina and I moved into a sleek new house in the suburbs, nestled in quiet woods, but at the bottom of a steep cul-de-sac. If I had driven home, it could have been fatal. Dominic, keep quiet about this for now. Have you fixed it? Not yet. This is serious. I need to call the police, he replied. Hold off, I suggested. Take a photo, document everything, but let's wait. Leave the car in the backyard, and I'll rent one of your old cars for a few days. There are security cameras, right? Dominic hesitated, then nodded. Yes, there are. Whoever's behind this will likely try to cover their tracks once they realize I'm alive. I suspect they'll attempt to steal the car from the parking lot soon, so I'm holding off on involving the police until then. Meanwhile, we'll have camera footage to provide them. After leaving the rented blue Corolla in my driveway, I took the day off to contemplate the attempt on my life, likely motivated by money. As president of Apex, a $6.8 billion software company, I suspected it was part of an attack on the company. With Carmelita, our cook and housekeeper, away for the day and the house quiet, I pondered potential culprits and motives. Calling Jeff, head of the security firm Apex employs, I arranged for a discreet audit of our systems and financial records. I provided Jeff with a temporary password for access and instructed my secretary Meredith to facilitate their visit. With preparations in motion, I continued my investigation. Though I didn't expect to find anything significant on our home computer, just out of curiosity, I attempted to access Gina's files, including her email, only to find them password protected. It struck me as odd. What could she be hiding, unless it was something innocent like planning a surprise party? I resolved to inquire about it later. Around 4:30, as I sipped tea in the kitchen, Gina entered and was visibly shocked by my presence. Her reaction was unlike anything I'd seen before. Her mouth dropped, she turned pale, and she leaned heavily against the doorframe. "Alex, why are you here?" Gina asked, startled. I gently reminded her that I lived there. She composed herself and joined me at the table, mentioning my early arrival and the absence of my car outside. In an instant, I considered telling her about the brake line, but settled for mentioning an engine issue and leaving the car at Dominic's. I rented one of their cars, explaining the vehicle in the driveway. Initially, I hesitated to tell her the truth, thinking I didn't want to worry her, but upon reflection, I realized it was more than that. Her shock in seeing me puzzled me deeply, lingering in my thoughts. Gina recovered, suggesting dinner plans and excusing herself to shower. As I heard the water running, I decided to tidy up and change before our evening out. As I approached the almost closed bedroom door, I overheard Gina speaking urgently on the phone. Why would she call while showering? Her conversation, though brief, made me pause. She was talking to Jeff Denham, my security-savvy friend known as Dowell since 8th grade. Gina had picked up my nickname for him, confirming his identity. After she hung up and headed to the bathroom, I waited, pondering the implications. Was there a connection between Gina, Jeff, and the car incident? Despite the whirlwind of thoughts, it all seemed improbable. Gina and I were married for 8 years. I was 46, she was 37, having been married once before at 20, with 2 kids living far away. I first encountered Gina during her tour of Apex offices. Intrigued, I orchestrated a lunch date through a mutual friend, which proved successful. Gina exuded effortless beauty, standing nearly 6 feet tall, with raven black hair, dark eyes, and a confident demeanor. Despite my age and average looks, I knew my success played a part in her attraction, and I was fine with that. With a solid prenup in place ensuring fairness in case of divorce, I believed our love was genuine and our life together promising. Gina brought me joy, despite her extravagant spending habits and flirtatious nature. Though she was adventurous in bed and in life, recent events had cast doubt on our relationship, especially with my friend Dowell possibly involved. I discreetly investigated Apex's finances, withholding information about the car break-in from both Gina and Dowell. That evening at dinner with Gina, I concealed my anxiety, knowing our night would end calmly. The next morning, I woke early and swiftly prepared for a trip to Los Angeles. With a packed bag, flight booked, and limo arranged, I woke Gina to inform her of my sudden departure. "Sorry to wake you, babe," I said, smiling at her as she slowly opened her eyes and returned the smile. "Morning, Alex. What's up?" I explained that I needed to fly to LA for a sudden business meeting, though it was a fabrication, a believable one, given my frequent travel. "All right, honey. I'll keep the bed warm. Back by Friday?" she asked. "Yeah, that's the plan. Just you and me," I replied. She chuckled and hugged me tightly, reassuring me of her presence. As I rode in the limo, I pondered Gina's possible involvement in the car incident. Her ease with deception made me question whether she was innocent or a skilled liar. I hoped for the former but feared the latter. During the short flight to Los Angeles, I strategized my plan, prioritizing secrecy due to Jeff Denham's potential involvement. As the top security expert locally, I decided to bring in someone from outside the area. After landing, I bought a prepaid cell phone for anonymity and checked into the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. I then arranged to meet Dan Cameron, my former right-hand man, for lunch near his downtown office. Despite living in LA now, Dan and I maintained our friendship, meeting a few times a year. Over lunch, we caught up on old times and discussed recent events. When the conversation turned serious, I leaned in to discuss matters further. I need a couple of favors, Dan, I began, and seeing his interest, I explained. I suspect issues within Apex. Do you trust any security firms? Certainly, Vertex Securities. Alan Newman leads it, Dan replied. But what about Jeff Denham, he added. I need an outside perspective, I explained. First, call Newman, but don't mention my name. Dan promptly made the call, arranging a meeting with Newman. Grateful, I asked him to keep our conversation confidential. Then I asked a more personal question. Have you ever seen Gina act suspiciously? To my surprise, Dan hesitated, his face flushing. Eventually, he confessed, recounting Gina's flirtations with him before he moved away. He was reluctant to disclose, fearing disbelief or anger from me. Dan sat down briefly, wearing a troubled expression. I get it, Dan, and I'm not upset with you, I reassured him. You chose to ignore the subtle advances and eventually she stopped. Exactly, it lasted a few weeks, then she went back to her usual self, Dan explained, adding, it felt like she was testing me or something. Was there anything else? Any other odd behavior? I asked, to which Dan nodded, still looking uneasy. Actually, yes. When we moved, Linda learned from Barbara Daniels, Josh's wife, that Josh, our CFO, was likely cheating with Gina. Intrigued, I inquired further, how did Barbara find out? Dan admitted uncertainty, mentioning Josh's suspicious behavior and potential encounters with Gina's perfume. He revealed that he and Linda debated whether to inform me, ultimately deciding against it to avoid unnecessary conflict. After our conversation, I harbored no resentment towards Dan. His accounts reinforced the suspicion that Gina might be involved in a scheme against me and my company. My call with Alan Newman was brief and to the point. I explained my need for a top-tier security firm for a confidential matter, emphasizing my desire for someone not affiliated with me or my acquaintances. Newman recommended Barry Asimov in San Diego, praising his intelligence, team, and trustworthiness. At my request, Newman connected me with Asimov and arranged a meeting for the following morning at 10 a.m. without disclosing my identity. Back at the hotel, I called Dan Cameron and asked him to rent a car from Hertz, ensuring it wouldn't be traceable. After a quick dinner, I had my usual late-night chat with Gina before heading to bed. The next morning, disguised in sweatpants, sunglasses, and a baseball cap, I traveled to the Hertz office at the Los Angeles airport. By 9:45, I arrived in San Diego and parked near the Asimov office. Despite Asimov's unimpressive appearance, I quickly realized his intelligence surpassed expectations. Feeling the need to confide, I directly addressed Asimov. I require a top-notch security firm for a highly confidential and complex task, I explained. This assignment involves extensive high-tech computer work and demands absolute discretion. I'm prepared to compensate generously, covering all expenses. The project may span weeks, and your fee could reach 7 figures. He gazed at me intently for a moment. Why come to us? What makes you think we're capable? Alan Newman recommended you highly, I replied. Why not use Newman then? He questioned. He's excellent, but I need to cover my tracks. Once we unravel this, you'll understand. I have to be cautious. Newman contacted you without divulging my identity, making it challenging to trace back. After discussing initial arrangements, Asimov prompted, tell me the whole story. If it aligns with our capabilities, we're on board. I divulged everything, my identity, Apex's operations and worth, and the recent assassination attempt, suspecting involvement from Gina and Dan. I recounted Dan Cameron's observations without mentioning his name. Asimov posed clarifying questions, displaying his expertise. I'm familiar with Jeff Denham's reputation, he acknowledged. If he's involved, we'll tread carefully. After further discussion, Asimov outlined a plan. You need 2 things, detailed examination of your documents and investigation into Denham, your wife, and other Apex executives. David Carlos, my top computer expert, will handle the financial scrutiny. Vera Anderson will lead a surveillance team for the other aspect. Half an hour later, we gathered in a conference room, enjoying takeout sandwiches while discussing my predicament. Asimov took a back seat, allowing Carlos and Anderson to lead the discussion, occasionally chiming in with his insights. His sharp wit reassured me, and by mid-afternoon I headed back to Los Angeles, relieved that Asimov accepted a promissory note instead of an immediate large fee. Carlos planned to investigate Apex through my computer, which linked to the company's vital systems. He instructed me to memorize Asimov's website URL. When alone in my office for over 2 hours, I would visit the site, download a program enabling Carlos to access and copy files from my computer and its network. Upon leaving, I'd delete the program and clear my browser history, covering my tracks. Though not foolproof, this method would likely go unnoticed unless my computer came under intense scrutiny. Carlos estimated that within 20 hours of web searching, he'd acquire the necessary data to assess Apex's status. Anderson's task was routine surveillance of Gina and Apex's top brass. We agreed against monitoring Denham, aware his security background would likely detect any surveillance, opting instead for discreet phone and credit card investigations. I cautioned against underestimating Denham's vigilance. He'd swiftly detect any overt surveillance. Vera proposed house audio-video recording bugs, Gina's purse and phone tap, ensuring secrecy. They assured quick, covert execution within 3 hours, including a sweep for existing surveillance. As for Gina's personal phone, Vera pledged to handle it at her tennis club locker. My role was to maintain normalcy, unsuspecting at work and home. While Asimov predicted a delay before another attempt on me, he advised caution, suggesting avoiding isolated areas and driving solo, even having Gina drive to work. I promised vigilance, despite the seeming ease of his advice. Before parting ways, we devised a one-way communication method to reach Asimov. Utilizing discarded cell phones, I'd call Larry Asimov, with the receptionist redirecting me to Barry. We agreed on bi-daily check-ins. Returning to the Beverly Wilshire, I informed Gina of my early return. She expressed her loneliness and anticipation for our reunion on Thursday night. Ending the call, I reflected on Gina's alleged plot. Despite her self-centered nature, I believe she loved me in her own manner. Our marriage lacked typical displays of affection, but we found contentment in our shared ambitions. Gina, although unemployed, remained active in her interests. Despite this, the evidence hinted at her involvement in the attempted homicide, driven by greed, a notion that unsettled me. If Dan Cameron's revelations were accurate, Gina might have ties to both Josh Daniels from Apex and my friend Jeff Denham. In essence, if my fears were valid, she embodied a monstrous, heartless figure. If she indeed had relations with Daniels, pursued Dan Cameron, and had links to Denham, it implied her central role in the ordeal. During the flight to San Jose, I pondered the possible outcomes. I believed I could convincingly feign ignorance around Gina for a time, should she be deceiving me. Conversely, if my doubts were unfounded, I'd gladly welcome her love once more. However, if she were implicated in the attempt on my life, I had envisioned how I wanted the situation to unfold, and a part of me anticipated it. Our Thursday night reunion with Gina was notable for a few reasons. Firstly, the closeness was exceptional. Secondly, the evening was ordinary, devoid of any conspicuous behavior that hinted at guilt or apprehension on her part. She conversed as usual, discussing her tennis match and shopping ventures, showing no indication of my suspicions. Upon my arrival at the office on Friday, Denham had already phoned to announce his imminent visit. His eagerness was unsurprising. Likely he aimed to discuss the audit I'd requested and probe into my motivations. As he entered with a grin, extending a handshake, I pondered how he'd learned of my trip to L.A. Perhaps Gina had mentioned it, though I refrained from raising suspicions by inquiring. Instead, I greeted him warmly, mentioning my time in L.A. and the uncertain outcome of a lead from Dan Cameron. Denham settled in across from me, reporting the audit's findings as routine, with minor accounting errors. He probed into my reason for the audit, his tone attempting nonchalance. Thankfully, I had anticipated the situation and had a prepared excuse. I initially dismissed it as nothing, but on Monday, Bert Williamson from 2K2 reached out. Apparently, one of their vice presidents heard vague rumors at a New York meeting about an attack on a Silicon Valley software firm involving fake subsidiaries funneling money. It sounded dubious, but since it had been a while since I requested an account check, I figured it was worth investigating. Apologies for the inconvenience, but it's better to stay informed. He seemed to relax, responding, "No problem, buddy. That's what we're here for." After his departure, I swiftly initiated Carlos's software to scrutinize Apex's finances and communications. Wanting to afford them ample time, I opted to dine at my desk, with Meredith kindly fetching lunch along with the day's newspaper, which I hadn't had a chance to read. Midway through my meal, an article on the Metro page caught my eye. Auto shop fire destroys 12 cars. Reading it closely, I learned that a blaze had erupted at Marshall Motors, consuming 12 vehicles and damaging several others. While not entirely unexpected given the circumstances, it still rattled me. I immediately phoned Dominic, wary of potential eavesdropping, and inquired about the incident. He assured me that everything was fine, but unfortunately confirmed my suspicions about my Lexus, which had been completely destroyed in the fire. "It's all right, Dominic. That's what insurance is there for. Can I swing by after work today, say around 6 p.m.? We agreed on the time, ending the call. While I doubted the security tapes at Marshall Motors had captured anything suspicious, I intended to have Asimov's team review them, just to be thorough. Thankfully, Dominic had documented the brake line issue and snapped some photos. Whoever orchestrated the arson was skilled. Walking me through the scene as the authorities gathered evidence, Dominic noted they suspect foul play but doubt they can prove it. Seems like that old Ford truck next to. Your Lexus had a gas leak, igniting a chain reaction. The blast engulfed the other cars, he said. Gesturing toward the wreckage, he added, there were surveillance cameras nearby, and I've copied the footage for you. It's in my office, tucked away with the coffee filters. Thank you, Dom. Now I need another favor, a significant one. I requested that Dominic hold off until Monday before sending the surveillance footage and his initial report, including photos, to Barry Asimov's office. I repeated the address several times to ensure he remembered. I also left my rental car with Dominic, opting for cabs for the next few days, picking them up from different locations on a whim. It reduces the likelihood of falling into a trap. I quickly dialed Larry and reached Barry Asimov within minutes. Not much had changed. Carlos had extracted data from my computer, but the process wasn't complete yet. I assured Barry I'd try to make it to the office during the weekend. Vera Anderson's team swept my house for bugs, finding none, and installed their own. They also cracked Gina's computer password and copied her files, planning to examine them later. I briefed Barry on the car fire incident, promising to provide documents and reports soon. We scheduled another call for early the following week. The weekend passed uneventfully. Gina and I stuck to our usual routine, sleeping in on Saturday, followed by breakfast cooked by Gina. We spent the day at the clubhouse, with me playing golf and Gina relaxing by the pool with her friends. Dinner was at the club with friends, followed by more love-making moments at home. Sunday saw us pursuing our individual activities. I informed Gina that I had to spend part of the day at the office, a common occurrence. I requested a ride and headed to the club for tennis. Using my discarded cell phone, I alerted Barry, who assured me Vera would meet her operative in the locker room while Gina played. I logged in, initiated the program, and let Carlos proceed. I pondered why I wasn't consumed by anger, considering the apparent betrayal by my wife and best friend, Gina's flirtation with Josh Daniels and possibly others. Despite these revelations, my anger remained subdued. I recalled the saying, "Revenge is a dish best served cold," attributed to Pierre-Ambroise François Chauderlos de Laclos in the 18th century. I compartmentalized my emotions, reserving judgment until I had concrete evidence. Gina picked me up around 5:30 after her activities, and we shared a quiet dinner at home, opting to watch recorded episodes of The Sopranos before retiring for the night. Monday passed without incident. In my office, I feigned work, ensuring David Carlos could complete the software setup. But during a Tuesday afternoon call with Barry from a downtown bar booth, I learned of significant progress from his team. Firstly, your car was indeed arson, Barry began. 2 masked men punctured the Ford's gas tank, spreading gasoline around before igniting it. I inquired about Dominic's evidence, suggesting it could implicate the perpetrators. Barry agreed, but noted the challenge of linking it to Denham or my wife without further proof. Moving on, Barry disclosed David's findings on my computer. They suspect a year-long embezzlement scheme totaling around $2 million. David believes he can trace it back to a specific office computer with more time. Concerned about recovering the funds, I asked about the possibility of reimbursement, to which Barry expressed skepticism, advising recourse through legal action if the culprit can be identified. Despite the financial loss being significant, I found solace in it being less severe than attempted homicide. Any updates on Gina? Did Vera's team find the bugs and access her computer files? He cleared his throat. Things aren't looking good, Alex. I won't sugarcoat it. It seems she's likely tied to 2 of the 3 Apex guys you mentioned, Josh Daniels and Eddie Kryler. Also, on Sunday, she made a call to Denham from her cell phone, confirming their relationship. Jesus, I muttered, feeling the weight of the revelation sink in. Barry's voice broke my somber thoughts. Give us a couple more days to sort this out. Vera's team is tracking Gina's cell phone, purse bug, and the bugs in your house. They're also investigating her cell phone records and credit cards. Did you have any idea about the cards under her maiden name? Hell no, I replied, still stunned. I understand this is tough. Can you hang tight a little longer while we conclude our investigation? I know I have to, Barry, so I'll manage. Do you think there's a risk of another attack? After a brief pause, he said, Possibly, but they'll be cautious, given the recent car incident. If you take reasonable precautions, avoid secluded places, you should be safe. Should I assign some men to watch over you? No, it's too risky. Denham's associates might catch on. I'll look after myself. I'll check in on Thursday. I'm sorry, Alex, he said softly. Yeah, me too, I replied before hanging up. Wednesday marked one of the most dismal days of my adult life. I faced the grim reality of my failing marriage and the betrayal of my closest friend, harboring the unsettling knowledge that one or both of them sought my downfall. Stuck in the office, I feigned productivity, engaging in sporadic conversations with Meredith while my mind churned with thoughts of vengeance. Though the specifics hinged on Barry's findings, the broad strokes of my retaliatory plan were already etched in my mind, fueling a growing sense of indignation and anticipation. Come Thursday, I delayed my call to Asimov, allowing his team ample time for investigation. By 4 p.m., I opted for a haircut and then retreated to a diner, hunkering down with a cup of coffee to dial Barry. Our conversation stretched nearly an hour, peppered with queries, clarifications, and strategizing. With the call concluded, he wished me luck, and we bid farewell. Armed with newfound information, I resolved to press forward. That evening I maintained my facade at home, reciprocating Gina's affection as usual. Over a dinner of Carmelita's fried chicken and a movie, I contemplated the imminent end of our physical closeness, perhaps even our emotional connection altogether. Wanting to avoid Gina, I left early on Friday and grabbed a quick breakfast, opting for Gina's BMW convertible on the way to the office. I aimed for a safer commute today, though Gina would likely be annoyed by the disappearance of her car. By day's end, it would be the least of her concerns. Upon Meredith's arrival at 9, I summoned her to my office, presenting her with a list of tasks. "I'll need to adjust my schedule today," I informed her. "Could you handle setting this up for me?" Perusing the list, her eyes widened in surprise. Expecting an explanation, she received only silence from me. Nevertheless, she nodded and pledged to take care of it. With a smile, I watched her exit. My morning remained uneventful, except for a 10 meeting with Nancy Lyatt, a friend and principal at Lyatt & Hine, a long-standing PR firm for Apex. Nancy, an attractive and witty woman around my age, engaged in an hour-long discussion in my office, with the radio masking our conversation. At lunchtime, I enjoyed a sandwich and soda at my desk, preparing for the anticipated events of the afternoon. Around 1, Meredith informed me that Jeff Denham was trying to reach me urgently. I instructed her to inform him that I couldn't meet until 4, as previously arranged. I pondered whether Denham had bugged my office, considering the possibility that he might have overheard my conversation with Nancy Lyatt. Nonetheless, I relished the idea of his frustration. Entering the conference room a few minutes before 1, I found it arranged precisely as I had specified, with the necessary equipment set up and ready to go. "Hello," I greeted. "It's Arthur, right?" He grinned, acknowledging the recognition. "Yes, Mr. McMillan." "Arthur Wren. Everything set up. Shall I run it or just give you a demo?"
"Just show me, please, Arthur."
"I want it running all day for my meetings here." He positioned it to cover the designated area, and we tested it briefly. All was well. "The cartridge lasts 6 hours, so you're good to go, Mr. McMillan." After thanking Arthur, I adjusted my laptop and reclined. Moments later, Josh Daniels entered, looking hesitant. "Josh, come in. You're fine with recording this, right?" He seemed puzzled. "Alex, what's up? We'll discuss in a sec. Did Meredith explain? This stays between us, okay?" He nodded, still uneasy. "Wait, yeah, sure, Alex. Is everything all right with the filming?" "I suppose, but about..." I cut him off. "Wait, Josh, you'll understand soon." I leaned back, maintaining a neutral expression, observing his discomfort. Then I confronted him. "Josh, I know about you and my wife." He grew tense, struggling to appear composed. His gaze avoided mine. "Alex, I don't know what..." "No need to pretend. I have the evidence," I confidently delivered the lie, tapping the thick manila folder beside me. "But now I want the truth from you. You're in deep trouble and lying will only make it worse." I faced tough negotiations, but Josh appeared utterly miserable. I relished his discomfort, waiting for his attempt to evade what he'd done. After a pause, he spoke. "Alex, can we turn the camera off?" "No, keep going, Josh. I'm listening. When did it start?" "How? And how could you justify this affair with the boss's wife?" He kept his gaze down. "It began 4 years ago, lasted 3 months. Gina seduced me. It's that simple. Linda and I knew you both for years." Gina flirted. Who wouldn't? Then, at a Christmas party, she heavily flirted with me. I didn't believe it until she called me, asking to come over when you were away. I tried to leave, but she insisted, locked the door, and confessed her desires. I knew it was wrong, but I stayed. She led me to the bedroom, and we spent 2 hours together. Josh slumped in defeat, his head resting on his hands as he gazed at the floor. "How long did it last, and how did it end?" "That's how it went. Then one day she abruptly ended it, not even being particularly kind. I think it was because I refused to comply with her wishes." "What did she want?" I inquired, breaking my silence since the confession began. He met my gaze. "She wanted me to set up fake accounts to drain money from Apex. It was all about the money, Alex, nothing else." She believed you had millions, and she wanted a big share for herself. She'd ask me questions in bed about our accounting systems, if creating fake accounts was possible, the risks involved, and so on. At first, I thought she was joking, but she kept bringing it up. In the end, I told her I wouldn't do it. He sat up straight. I won't lie anymore, Alex. I didn't refuse out of morals or loyalty to you or Apex. By then, I was willing to do anything just to be with Gina. But I couldn't see a way to do what she wanted without risking getting caught, and I wasn't willing to go to jail, not even for her. When Gina realized I wouldn't comply, she ended things. Fortunately, it happened before Linda could find proof of the affair. I repeatedly denied it, fabricating stories and swearing it was just work-related projects. Although Linda probably didn't fully believe me, she eventually dropped it. I made every effort to make it up to her, and thankfully, we're still together. We sat silently for a few minutes. Much of what Josh disclosed was new to me. Barry's team had uncovered evidence of the affair, numerous phone calls, and some suggestive emails. But Josh's revelation, that Gina initiated it, and her desire to embezzle from the company were surprises. I rose and dismissed Josh, instructing him to leave for the weekend and keep our discussion confidential. He responded with resignation and fear, agreeing to reconvene on Monday and return home to his family. In the meantime, I spoke with Eddie Kryler around 1:30 p.m. Eddie advanced within Apex, holding positions in global sales and marketing before becoming my second in command in operations. He confirmed Gina approached him several months post her split with Josh, a period exceeding 6 months. Being single, they didn't feel the need for extreme caution. Eddie revealed Gina broached the idea of embezzling from the company gradually, initially as a joke. Over time, it evolved into a serious proposition. He explored various options but found none feasible, citing the company's stringent financial controls. When he confessed his reluctance to Gina, their association ended. When I confronted Bernard Eisenhart, Apex's treasurer, about his involvement with my wife, his reaction was one of surprise rather than distress. He insisted I should discuss it with Gina, not him. Despite presenting him with pictures, he remained firm in his denial. Barry confirmed there was no evidence linking him to Gina except for one phone call. Bernie recounted how Gina lured him to a supposed surprise party where she made advances. However, he resisted due to my marital status and left promptly afterward. He opted not to disclose this incident to me earlier, fearing I would blame him. Understanding his perspective, I assured him I believed his account, clarifying that I recently discovered Gina's infidelity with other company employees. Bernie's initial anger subsided into astonishment upon learning about Gina's involvement with 2 other men. He even recalled rumors about her and Josh from years ago but had dismissed them. After our discussion, I assured him of my trust, reiterated that I hadn't accused him, and stressed the importance of confidentiality. After he left, Meredith informed me about Jeff Denham's urgency to meet immediately, despite the scheduled appointment for 4. Denham was insistent. I instructed Meredith to give me 5 minutes before letting him in. Reflecting on what I had just learned, I realized the gravity of the situation. Discovering that my best friend wanted me dead was not an everyday occurrence, and I relished the opportunity to confront him. When Jeff Denham entered the conference room, he appeared visibly shaken, as though he had consumed an excess of caffeine. Despite his attempt to appear composed, his voice betrayed his nervousness. "Hey, Alex, what's up?" His tone, though carefully casual, carried a hint of anxiety. "Hey, Dowell, thanks for dropping by. Want some coffee?" He declined and inquired about the video camera in the room. With a smile, I explained its purpose for recording today's meetings. He seemed apprehensive but voiced no objections. As Denham puzzled over the situation, I noted Meredith's silence and Bernie Eisenhart's cryptic nod earlier. Turning the laptop toward Denham, I revealed a still frame from a recent bedroom video. His shock was palpable as he met my gaze. Before he could respond, I struck him with my fist under his eye. He recoiled, crashing to the floor as the chair slid backward. Standing over him, I removed my glove, feeling the pain but relieved it wasn't more severe. With a grim smile, I waited for Denham to regain his composure. It took him a while to regain consciousness, and when he did, he looked around warily, then moved away from me, his expression a mix of confusion and caution. "Think you can handle more?" I quipped, my tone casual. "No need, Alex," he muttered, eyeing the door as if considering escape. "Forget it, Dowell. Guards are outside. You're staying put," I assured him. As we sat in tense silence, he seemed to mull over his predicament, likely hoping I was unaware of the full extent of his actions. "Get back to the table," I commanded. "What's coming next will hurt a lot worse." He complied, keeping his gaze fixed on me. "You're a disgrace," I berated him. entertaining my wife, stealing from me, and plotting my homicide. His reaction was one of shock and alarm. Gina confessed it all, I lied confidently. You thought eliminating me would complete the betrayal, didn't you? Alex, it's not true, he pleaded desperately. I admit to the affair with Gina, no denying that now, but the idea to steal and eliminate was all hers. I tried to talk her out of it, but eventually went along. She initiated everything. He confessed after some silence, detailing how Gina persuaded him into the affair and then suggested stealing money from me. Unlike others involved, Denham complied, embezzling $1.8 million over 7 months. But Gina wanted more, claiming my wealth justified it. Denham spoke openly now, expressing remorse for his actions. She wanted more, said $1 million or $2 million wasn't enough. It wasn't fair. I closed the account and covered my tracks. A month later, she talked about eliminating you, wanting us to be together and enjoy your money. She persisted every time we met, painting a vivid picture of our future once you were gone. And you believed her? He sighed heavily. I was a fool, Alex. I convinced myself she loved me. I held on, but she started hinting that if I didn't comply, we might not be together. After weeks of this, I felt trapped. Gina is a cold-blooded monster. When she got the idea, she wouldn't let go, so I found someone to tamper with the brake line. He assured me it could be done without suspicion. He looked at me, worn out. I know you'll never forgive me, how could you? But I can't believe I did it. It's like I was someone else, like Gina had control over me. I followed her instructions like a puppet. I didn't need to ask if. He'd try again, the answer was clear from the video Asimov had sent me. His voice strained, he admitted, she wanted to. I persuaded him to wait, but she persisted. He broke down, confessing everything, including the offshore accounts where he stashed the money, except for the $60,000 Gina had already spent. Around 4:30, I handed him over to the guards. Then I returned to the conference room, awaiting Gina's arrival at 5. Each revelation sank in deeper. My wife wasn't just betraying me and stealing, she aimed to ruin me. How could I have been so blind to her true nature after 8 years together? Gina sauntered into the conference room, fashionably late as usual, appearing glamorous yet slightly irked. Sweetheart, what's with all this? Meredith practically ordered me here, but she hasn't spilled a thing. Is there some company drama? And why did you leave me stranded without a car this morning? Observing her closely, I detected her faux annoyance masking genuine concern. Likely, she and Denham had been frantically communicating today, trying to decipher the situation. Darling, please sit down. This isn't easy for me. I feigned emotional struggle, silently relishing every moment. After a pregnant pause during which Gina's knee trembled nervously, I addressed her. Gina, I know about your infidelity. How could you betray me like this? I believed you loved me. She tried to compose herself, but her eyes widened, and she tensed swiftly. A mix of sadness and empathy flashed across her face, impressive, but expected. Sweetie, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. It's just, you were often away, and I... She broke off, tears welling up. Convincing. I might have softened if I weren't privy to the truth. Still crying, she reached for my hand. Alex, can you forgive me? I can't bear to lose you. I don't know, Gina. I just don't know. Then, after a pause, tell me everything, when it started, how it unfolded, and why. Above all, why? Why did you do it? Oh, darling, please, let's not delve into it. We can overcome this, I promise. Or I'll make it right. No, Gina, I replied, feigning a strained voice. If we're to move forward, you must be honest with me. Now, when did it begin? How long did it continue? I had her dangling by a thread, relishing the control. She was unsure which lover I knew about. By framing her affair in the past tense, I left her guessing, potentially confessing to a tryst I might not even know about. Reluctantly, she started. As I said, Alex, you were off and away, and I felt neglected. I know it's unfair. You've worked tirelessly, built a successful company for us both, but I succumbed to his advances, I suppose, and then I chuckled inwardly. A valiant effort, Gina, but you're not off the hook yet. When was this, Gina? I need specifics. Abruptly, she rose, attempting to embrace me with tear-filled eyes. Alex, I'm so sorry. Holding her at arm's length, I pressed. When was it? I watched her mental calculations flicker in her eyes. She sighed, settling into the chair beside me. A little over 4 years ago. It was Josh Daniels, she admitted. I smirked to myself. Nice try, Gina. Too bad you don't know there's no right choice. Irritation peeked through her facade of sadness as she realized she had no alternative. It had lasted for months. I don't know why, Alex, I lost control. Eventually, I ended it with Josh. It was tearing me apart. I sobbed throughout, and Josh, I cut her off with a shout. You were unfaithful with Josh, too. The panic in her widened eyes was palpable as she pleaded, I don't understand, baby. Eddie Kryler wasn't the only one, I accused. You slept with 2 of my employees. What were you thinking? She tried to interject, but my agitation wouldn't allow it. How do we fix this? How can I trust you again? Everyone at Apex must be laughing behind my back. The boss's wife takes care of the employees. Who else have you been involved with? The janitor? No, baby, just 2, she swore. How can I believe that? I demanded. You've been involved with everyone I know, Dan Cameron, Archie, Peter, Dowell. How can I trust you? Seeing her chance, she rose and took my hands. Alex, it was only those 2 years ago. I've been faithful since, and will be forever. Silence filled the room. I stared at her, masking the anger with sadness. Okay, Gina, I said slowly. So you cheated, but then decided to be faithful again, right? Her eyes held a glimmer of hope. Yes, baby, she said softly. Well, there's one more thing, I said, pushing the laptop toward her. Can you tell me what? With a keystroke, the video played, Jeff's head between Gina's thighs. Her pleasure-filled cries filled the room. Oh yes, Dowell, do it, she moaned. Gina surprised me. She didn't recoil from the laptop like it was a snake, no attempt to flee, no shriek, just a quick, oh, choked out almost immediately. Then, after a pause, she shut the laptop and turned to me, her face transformed from shock to anger, eyes gleaming and mouth twisted into a strained grin. Okay, Alex, you caught me. Congratulations. What do you want me to admit? Yes, I had fun with Dowell, and he was better than you could ever be. Really, Gina, is that why you tried to ruin me? My question rattled her. She froze, staring at me before managing a weak, what? I have no clue what you're talking about. Is that so? I murmured. I opened the laptop, tapped a few keys, and showed her the screen. Our kitchen appeared with Gina and Denham in bathrobes at the table. Gina spoke. I don't have Dowell. If the car didn't crash, we'll try again. We need to destroy it differently. Can't we poison it? I silenced the computer and grinned at Gina. I wish I had that video, darling. It'll be tough for you to deny in court. I stared into her cold eyes, seeing her frantic attempts to escape. She abandoned any pretense of remorse or affection. Finally, her voice dripped with contempt. You won't dare go to the police, Alex. You'd be a laughingstock, so would Apex, the head of a billion-dollar company, his wife entertaining the employees. You'd be a worldwide joke. Gina sat there, smug and contemptuous. I dialed Meredith and requested Nancy Lyatt. When she entered, she regarded my wife with disdain. Nancy, my dear wife believes it would be detrimental to arrest her for grand larceny and attempted homicide. Care to share what you told me this morning? Nancy grinned widely. Absolutely, Alex. This saga of Gina and Denham's wicked scheme will dominate the headlines. It has all the elements: money, infidelity, attempted homicide, a stunning woman, betrayal. It'll surpass Paris Hilton and Anna Nicole Smith. Gina will be the scandal of the month, and Apex will gain unprecedented publicity worth more than $500 million in ads. You'll be on Larry King, The Today Show, everywhere. A virtuous businessman deceived by a conniving woman and her puppet. After the trial, Apex will shine in Business Week, Wall Street Journal. You'll earn Entrepreneur of the Year. The company could gain $100 million in business. You'll receive thousands of letters from women vying to be the next Mrs. McMillan. It's a boon for Apex, for you. Gina might not find it amusing now, but you're about to enrich a wealthy man even more. As his PR representative, I couldn't concoct anything better. With a wink, Nancy exited. Gina relaxed in her chair, her smile deep and sardonic. Maybe for the first time in all the years I'd known her, she seemed completely beaten. I dialed Meredith's number. Meredith, you need to call the cops. The following 14 months might have somewhat balanced out what had happened earlier. Or maybe not, it's tough to gauge, but they certainly had their share of drama. The police slapped Gina and Denham with charges including attempted homicide, conspiracy to commit homicide, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, grand larceny, and a handful of other offenses. Apex's legal team promptly launched a civil case to reclaim the embezzled funds, which we knew the location of thanks to Denham's confession. And naturally, I promptly initiated divorce proceedings on grounds of infidelity. Thankfully, due to the legal actions, all of Denham's and Gina's accounts linked to mine were frozen. By the time they were out on bail, they couldn't afford high-priced attorneys and had to settle for public defenders for a while. Not a pleasant experience. I ousted Gina from the house and easily obtained a restraining order from the court. The video of her and Denham discussing a second attempt on my life was quite convincing. She persuaded Susan, one of her tennis pals, to put her up in Susan's guest house temporarily. Gina made no effort to reach out to me, not that I anticipated or desired it. She must have realized there was nothing she could say to alter the situation. The Monday following Gina's moment of truth, I summoned Josh and Eddie and let them go. Neither seemed particularly shocked. Eddie just requested that if a potential employer contacted me for a reference, I'd vouch for his solid work at Apex. I readily agreed. Josh attempted to strike a bargain. "Help me land a decent job and I'll testify against Gina in her trial," he proposed. I chuckled and showed him the door. I reminded him that I already had his admission of infidelity and her attempt to coerce him into theft on tape. If he refused to testify, the prosecutors would simply subpoena him. I've appointed Bernie Eisenhardt as Josh's CFO, confident he'll excel. I've tasked him with interviewing candidates for his own replacement as treasurer and for Eddie's role. About 7 months later, Gina and Denham's trial commenced, and it was quite the spectacle, spanning nearly 3 weeks. I attended court sessions intermittently, not feeling compelled to be there every day. Predictably, they couldn't refute their actions, each defense attorney striving to paint the other as the primary culprit. Gina's allure and courtroom demeanor worked wonders on the male jurors. However, the damning video clearly depicted her urging Denham to orchestrate another attempt on my life. Not even Gina could overcome that evidence. They were both convicted on roughly 8 charges, including the primary ones. Throughout the trial, the media attention enabled Gina to secure multiple contracts for magazine and TV interviews, affording her the means to hire a high-priced lawyer. The new legal team has filed appeals, successfully stalling the sentencing process thus far. However, Gina and Dowell are looking at 10 to 15 years behind bars. All the embezzled funds, except for $72,000, were returned to Apex. Given Denham's defunct security firm, I needed someone to fill that role for Apex. During my trip to Los Angeles to express gratitude to Barry Asimov, he recommended hiring David Carlos, who was keen on relocating to the Bay Area, a decision you've witnessed pay off. I believe you'll be pleased with offering him a contract, especially with you as his main client, fostering growth for his business. So I extended a job offer to Carlos, and things seem to be progressing smoothly thus far. While visiting Asimov's office, he surprised me with another video unrelated to the threat from Gina and Denham. "Come to the screening room, Alex. I have something you might find interesting." To my astonishment and amusement, the footage revealed Gina in bed with Charlie Patton, my attorney. Despite being nearly 60 and seemingly not providing Gina much satisfaction, she had seduced him a couple of months earlier and enlisted him to find loopholes in our prenup. Unsurprisingly, given Charlie's legal prowess, he had drafted the prenup himself. He hadn't made much headway. Nonetheless, it didn't deter him from seizing any opportunity Gina presented. I took particular pleasure in publicly accusing Charlie of unethical conduct, raising as much noise as possible. The California Board of Legal Ethics had no option but to disbar him. Furthermore, I sued him and managed to retrieve around $240,000 from his savings, which I then donated to charity. All of this brought me immense satisfaction. Regarding Apex and myself, everything unfolded precisely as Nancy Lyott had anticipated. Initially, there was a surge of media coverage on cable news channels and in tabloids. I made appearances on CNN, featured in Fortune magazine's cover story, graced the front page of the National Enquirer, and appeared in various other outlets. Nancy had to hire 3 additional staff members to manage the increased workload. We convened almost daily to strategize and assess which interviews and opportunities were worth pursuing. In the first half year following the article's publication, Apex's business expanded by nearly 20%. Nancy's prediction about receiving letters from women also proved accurate. We amassed over 8,000 letters, with more pouring in consistently. After reviewing the initial few hundred, some accompanied by suggestive or explicit photos, I delegated the task of responding to them to one of my interns. It's quite possible this guy has a more active romantic life than I do. Additionally, local divorcees and single women reached out. I received propositions from more women than I ever imagined existed. Yet, to my surprise, I discovered I wasn't particularly intrigued. Gina brought me immense carnal satisfaction until our relationship unraveled. I went on dates with 4 women I found attractive, but soon realized that a promiscuous lifestyle wasn't for me. After collaborating closely with Nancy for a few weeks, I realized she was the one I wanted to pursue romantically. We've been dating for nearly a year now, with neither of us feeling rushed to tie the knot, although it may happen eventually. On my recent birthday, Nancy surprised me with a special gift. We spent Saturday night at her place, watching an old Humphrey Bogart movie before indulging in closeness. On Sunday morning, she let me sleep in while she prepared breakfast, which she then brought to the bedroom on a large tray. When I woke up, I found her standing there in her robe, holding breakfast. After we ate, she teased, "Is your present ready?" I'm actually wearing it under my robe. Curiously, I raised my eyebrows, but she only grinned mischievously. "Ready?" she asked, unveiling a white t-shirt adorned with a scanned image of a smiling Gina, likely taken from a photo Nancy found at my home. Beneath the image, in bold letters, it read, "I survived a monster." I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Then I pulled her close, saying, "Come here, you."
Kim and I first met roughly 7 years ago and quickly formed a close friendship. Both of us were raised in the Midwest, where our devout Christian beliefs placed God above all else, even family. Our Sundays were filled with church visits and hopeful discussions about our future plans. I pursued a successful career as an engineer with promising prospects, while Kim thrived in her role selling accounting software for a prominent technology firm based in Atlanta. Before our marriage, my parents generously gifted me a 3-bedroom house upon my college graduation. With their wealth, they aimed to share their success while still alive, unlike many who wait until after pass away. Mom and Dad found joy in giving during their lifetime. Kim and I exchanged vows a little over 5 years ago, and since then, we've been on an endless honeymoon. Our lovemaking life was vibrant, with passionate encounters at least 4 nights a week. We were viewed as soulmates, much to the amusement of our friends who were envious of our closeness. Our joy multiplied when we welcomed 2 beautiful blonde twin girls into our lives. After their arrival, our focus shifted entirely to raising them in a nurturing and loving environment. Our lifestyle might be deemed dull by some. We typically dined at home most evenings, reserving Friday and Saturday nights for outings and Sundays for church. Unlike peers our age, we weren't drawn to socializing or keeping up with fashion trends. Kim opted for conservative attire both at work and home, reserving our lovemaking moments exclusively for our bedroom built on trust and transparency, forming a sturdy foundation for our marriage. Kim, naturally affectionate, expressed her love through tender gestures of touch, kisses and hugs, all of which I adored. We relished in sharing our emotions and cherished each other deeply. While raising twins presented its challenges, I cherished every moment spent with them. Though the twins posed some stress for Kim, I gladly supported her through any difficulties. Our partnership was built on effective communication, ensuring we dealt with issues promptly. Life with Kim and our twin girls was going smoothly. However, a week before the annual exhibition, Kim received notice that she had to participate due to others falling ill with the virus. Despite her attempts to decline, she had no choice but to comply due to the urgency of the situation. She expressed her regret, saying she was sorry to leave us for 3 days and that she had tried to avoid it by contacting her boss. She mentioned how much she hated being away from us. I reassured her that we would manage fine without her for a few days and that we would miss her dearly. I helped her pack and accompanied her to the limo arranged by the company for her airport journey. Our marriage had always been solid, built on trust and transparency. There had never been any indication of her behaving in a way that wasn't loving or faithful. We shared everything openly and worked together as a team, especially when it came to our children. On the second night of the exhibition, I received a text from Greg, a colleague and friend who was at a cybersecurity event in Atlanta. He mentioned Kim being at the exhibition and asked if I was supposed to be at the security conference. He seemed curious about the trade show Kim was attending, and I confirmed it was in Atlanta, but wasn't sure of the exact name. Greg's messages left me wondering what he was trying to imply. His message contained 2 photos and a video. I sat paralyzed with dread. The first photo depicted my wife in an unfamiliar outfit, the shortest dress I'd ever seen her wear, accentuating her ample chest with a plunging neckline. She wore pumps I didn't recognize, her hair and makeup flawless, radiating stunning allure. Never had she appeared so alluring to me. Initially, upon seeing the first photo, I convinced myself it must be someone resembling Kim, as it seemed implausible it could be her. I chuckled inwardly, musing, I wish Kim would dress like that one day. But the amusement faded when the subsequent photo emerged, a close-up of her closely seated next to Jonathan, one of her bosses. I sat there, stunned, motionless, not even blinking, until the next photo materialized, a close-up of her smiling and gazing into Jonathan's eyes. My heart sank at the sight. Though I attempted to rationalize, there must be a logical explanation, albeit futile. The following message contained a brief video clip showing my wife kissing Jonathan, her arms wrapped around his neck while his hand rested on her right breast. In that instant, my mind exploded. I felt as if my entire world collapsed upon me. Tears of anguish streamed down my face, my heart racing, and a wave of nausea engulfing me. A message came through. "Hey, are you okay? What should I do? Can you see her right now?" "Yes, I'll give her a call right away to check on her." I dialed her number, hearing it ring several times before reaching voicemail. Leaving a message, I expressed our longing to speak with her and ensure she had a pleasant evening. I reached out to Greg, updating him on the call. "I just tried reaching her. What happened?" Greg's remorse was palpable. "David, I'm sorry about this. She took her phone out of her purse, glanced at the caller ID, then returned it to her purse. I can't believe it's her. I've never seen her behave or dress like this before." "Greg, it's okay. Thank you for being upfront with me. You're a true friend. I'll handle this myself. If possible, avoid confronting her. Keep me informed if anything else occurs. But don't waste time trailing her. I'll handle it from here." "Are you going to be okay, buddy?" "No, I'm far from okay, but I know what I need to do. I'll handle it. I'm still reeling from the shock, but I'll come to terms with everything. Thanks again." "Anytime. I'm here for you. Take care of yourself, Greg. Thanks once more." I poured a stronger drink and sat in the dimly lit living room, grappling with the sudden collapse of my world in under 20 minutes. I had been oblivious to any issues in our relationship. How long had this been going on? Was I truly oblivious to the signs? No, she never gave me cause for concern. In fact, over the past 6 months, our bond had grown stronger, our closeness intensified. None of it made sense, leaving me bewildered. In the following hour, Greg sent more photos and videos. A brief clip showed them dancing, his hand on her back. Another captured them kissing on the dance floor. A photo depicted a deep, private kiss on a deserted dance floor, oblivious to the music's end. I acknowledged it was over between us, yet there was much I needed to unravel and comprehend. Leveraging my analytical skills as an engineer and problem solver, I spent the ensuing days devising a plan. Kim surprised me with a call at 10 p.m. After receiving their final photo, I took a deep breath, striving to compose myself. I resolved not to reveal any inkling of awareness about her actions. "Hey there, sorry I missed your earlier call. I was at a dinner meeting and couldn't talk. I miss you so much, baby. Wish I could be there with you, cuddling under the covers, showering you with kisses. I miss you too, Kim. I love you deeply, and thanks for calling. The girls are adorable, and I'll send you some photos. They're missing their mom and want you to come home." I tried to leave tomorrow, but my boss insisted I stay. "Hate being away from you, darling. We'll celebrate when you're back. Finished for today?" "Yes, I'm preparing for bed and another long work day. Love you, baby, and I'll call you tomorrow. Good night, Kim. I love you more than words can express." And with that, I hung up, tears welling up again. What I said was genuine. I loved her more than anything and hoped this was just a terrible dream. Past midnight, I lay in bed unable to sleep. I wondered if she was truly in her hotel room and what she was up to. My question was answered by another message from Greg. It was a photo of Kim and Jonathan on a lobby sofa, sharing a kiss. His hand was beneath her short skirt, her arms wrapped around his neck. They resembled a couple in love, publicly displaying their affection. "And one last thing, buddy. I'm done for today, but looks like she's busy. Let me know if you want me to stop. I can easily put an end to this. It's tough to face right now, but thanks for the photos." "No need. Let her go. It's her wrongdoing, not yours. Stay out of it." "Thanks again." I cried myself to sleep, knowing that the love of my life had betrayed me. Eventually, exhaustion and the comfort of our marriage vows and our daughter's sleep eased the pain and tears until I woke up the next morning. Kim sent me several affectionate messages adorned with hearts, kisses, and emojis. She professed her love, expressing how much she missed both me and the girls. She even hinted at a passionate night ahead upon her return. When she came back, she showered me with sweetness and affection, behaving as though nothing had transpired. I began to wonder if perhaps she suffered from dissociative disorder or had been unknowingly medicated. Despite my search for explanations, I realized I needed to confront the reality and prepare for her imminent return home. Our frequent conversations seemed normal, with Kim expressing her longing to reunite with us. I couldn't determine what upset me more, her infidelity or the deceit accompanying it. Feeling deceived cut as deep as witnessing her embrace with Jonathan. Upon learning of my wife's betrayal through Greg's messages, I took decisive action. Leveraging my tech expertise, I discreetly installed tracking software on her phone, initially intended for locating misplaced devices. Opting for the latest software available, I even walked Kim through its setup. This software also featured a voice recorder capable of capturing calls, texts, and emails with automatic cloud uploads if activated. Let me clarify. My intention wasn't to spy on her, but circumstances warranted caution. Before this incident, I never considered invading her privacy. However, following recent events, my trust had been shattered irreparably. My priority was safeguarding our daughters and salvaging our marriage, if feasible. Thankfully, caring for the twins kept me occupied, offering respite from thoughts of our disintegrating relationship. Whether it was preparing breakfast, tidying up after them, or engaging in doll play, these moments were precious amidst the turmoil. Trust me, tending to 3-year-old twins is no small feat. It was 2 p.m., and I finally managed to get the girls to settle down for their afternoon nap. After tidying up the house and showering, I sat at the table to catch up. Kim had sent me 6 more affectionate messages, mentioning she would call at 5 p.m. once her day wrapped up. After reading them, I accessed the cloud from my laptop, logged into her account, and reviewed everything recorded since activating the spying software. I sat in shock as I read the messages exchanged with Jonathan. Here are a few excerpts. "You were incredible last night, baby. Can't wait for tonight." "Thanks, kitten. I enjoyed it too. Can we head to my room after work before dinner?" "Certainly, but I need to call my husband first. I should be ready by 5:15. "Does your husband suspect anything?" "Of course not. He thinks I love him, and I'll keep it that way. We've kept it a secret for over 6 months, and he's clueless. Don't worry." My anger became overwhelming, prompting me to stop reading. "Kitty! Did he call her kitten? That's my term for her during closeness. Did she give him that too? Was I truly that oblivious? What kind of fool was I?" I dropped my laptop on a chair and screamed, grabbing a lamp from the table and hurling it forcefully into the wall, shattering it into pieces. The rage I had managed to control now consumed me. As I was about to break another lamp, I heard the girls crying. Their cries snapped me back to reality, and I regained control. I rushed into the bedroom, holding both girls in my arms until they calmed down. After cleaning up the glass from my outburst, I let them play in the living room while I sat with another strong drink, reflecting on my actions. In my view, the marriage was beyond repair, and it was time to take action. I lacked the strength to listen to their conversations or review any more files, so I allowed them to accumulate in the cloud. I decided to play along with Kim, just as she had deceived me. My immediate plan was to act like a loving husband while strategizing my next steps. I intended to contact a divorce lawyer, hire a private investigator, and find a way to secure custody of the girls. Their well-being was my top priority and the only thing that truly mattered to me. "Hey, sweetheart, how are the girls holding up? They're missing their mommy." "Oh my goodness, they're on my mind all day, every day. And of course, you too. I can't wait to wrap my arms around you. When I get back, I'm going to give you the warmest kiss you've ever had." I played along, saying, "Oh, darling, I think of you constantly, longing to embrace my loving, beautiful wife. Soon, my love, we'll be reunited." Somehow I kept it together, and our call lasted precisely 15 minutes. At 5:15, she bid farewell, saying, "I love you, David. I have to go catch the bus back to the hotel. I'll message you later. I love you." Another effortlessly delivered lie. She had quite the talent for it. "I love you too, sweetheart. More than you can imagine." The pain of her deception has now transformed into contempt, anger, and a desire for revenge. I was determined to expose her lies and hold her accountable. I had loved her wholeheartedly, making this betrayal all the more difficult to bear. I greeted her at the airport, and she embraced and kissed me just as she had promised. Either she was an exceptional actress, or she genuinely cared for me deeply. Was her involvement with Jonathan merely physical? Her behavior continued to baffle me. She spent an hour with the girls, relishing their company. That night, she was exceptionally affectionate in bed, repeatedly expressing how much she missed me and the girls, and lamenting her prolonged absence. She spoke of wanting nothing more than to be with me, holding each other in bed. She was tender, loving, and entirely different from the woman I saw at the fair. I reciprocated her affection and cherished our time together. It felt genuine, and I yearned for it to be authentic because being with her was all I desired. Yet, deep down, I knew it would soon come to an end. I kept my newfound knowledge hidden, showering her with love and fulfilling her every night. To outsiders, our relationship seemed idyllic, sparking envy in others. This charade persisted for 3 months, during which I searched for any signs of infidelity but found none. She arrived home from work at her usual time every evening. No unusual phone calls or text messages. I even dared to hope that it was all a mistake and that things would resolve themselves. Mr. Bryce, a private investigator, called me and arranged to meet the next day. I drove downtown to their office and sat in their conference room. "Good afternoon, David. Good to see you again." "Likewise, Mr. Bryce." "David, I wish I had better news, but unfortunately I have to deliver some bad news. Are you prepared to review our findings?" I sighed and nodded in agreement. While I hoped for the best, deep down, I knew what was happening between Kim and Jonathan. Mr. Bryce placed a thick leather 3-ring binder in front of me. It contained sections labeled text messages, voice transcripts, video calls, phone call transcripts, and photos. "Mr. Bryce, before we delve into this, I'm perplexed because I've been closely monitoring her activities and schedule for the past 3 months, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She's been the ideal wife and partner, and none of this makes sense." Let me guide you through this and see if anything becomes clearer. I refrained from accessing cloud files because I couldn't bear the thought of reading the texts, hoping for a positive outcome. Unfortunately, that hope was dashed. There were over 75 pages of text messages, 25 pages of emails, and 75 pages of time-stamped photos showing them entering and exiting hotel rooms together. Additionally, there were over 82 video calls and 50 pages of phone conversations. Kim and Jonathan had been visiting a motel at least 4 times a week for the past 3 months, spending an average of 2 hours together during each visit. "It appears that for the past month there have been 2 men meeting your wife 4 times a week. Do you recognize this man? Oh my God, is this Jason Sinclair? Is he the CEO of her company? Are you saying she's involved with 2 men, one of whom is the CEO? I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but based on the evidence from text messages, phone calls, and videos, it's evident that he's engaged in a carnal relationship with your wife. The video call labeled balcony actually captured them in a love-making moment, with him behind her as she leaned over the railing. They seemed unaware they were being recorded. Our high-definition video captured close-ups of their faces, and the audio was also recorded." He played the video on the 80-inch screen. There was Kim, my wife, leaning over the railing with her CEO standing behind her. I felt sick to my stomach. I had to step out of the room for a few minutes to compose myself. I returned to the conference room, urging them to continue, as I was now eager to see what my wife had been up to. "The video labeled Balcony 2 shows your wife with both Jason and Jonathan simultaneously. I regret having to show you all this, but since they were in public, you can use these videos if you decide to proceed with your divorce and custody battle." I sat there, mouth agape, still finding it difficult to believe it could be Kim. I prayed fervently that it was all just a colossal mistake. "David, we've looked into Jonathan Wilkes and Jason Sinclair. Jonathan has been married for 10 years with 4 young children. Mr. Sinclair has also been married for 25 years with 3 grown children. Text messages reveal that Jonathan introduced Jason into their activities after your wife expressed interest in a triangle of love. It's quite grim, so I'll leave you to review it when you're ready. Here's the folder and a USB drive containing all the files and videos. Your lawyer will likely need both." When I met with my lawyer, she was astonished at the wealth of evidence we had gathered and couldn't believe there were no prior signs of infidelity. At home, Kim continued to play the role of a devoted wife and mother, behaving as if everything was normal. The lawyer outlined various legal avenues based on the evidence I provided, but needed time to explore our options fully, scheduling another appointment for the following week. I instructed her to begin filing the divorce papers as soon as possible. Leaving her office, I felt a pit in my stomach. I knew it was over before these meetings, but watching those videos extinguished any hope of reconciliation. I was still baffled. Who was this woman? Later that evening, after putting the girls to bed, we watched an old movie I found on Netflix called Unfaithful. I heard it was a good film. "Let's give it a shot," I suggested, hitting play. Given the film's theme of infidelity, I had prepared for the conversation in advance. During the movie, I casually mentioned a female intern at my office who had been showing interest in me for months. "Can you imagine me with another woman?" I chuckled. Kim eyed me suspiciously. "Really? Who? If I catch you even thinking about being with her, I'm leaving. Got it? You're mine and no one else's," she asserted sternly. Despite my attempts to keep the mood light, she was dead serious. She made it abundantly clear that she wouldn't tolerate any deceit. It was astounding how indignant she was about it, considering her own actions. It was driving me mad. "David, why didn't you tell me about her sooner? What's her name? Kim?" "Relax. She's just an intern, a young, flirtatious girl. I've completely ignored her." "What about you, Kim? You're the most beautiful girl in your office. Do you mean to tell me no one ever flirts with you? Of course not. They all know I'm married and would never cheat on you. So, in our entire marriage, you never entertained the thought of being with another guy or did anything like that? Not even a friendly kiss? Have you ever cheated on me, baby? Her anger flared. Are you kidding me? Did you seriously just ask me that? I constantly express my love for you. I'm always faithful to you, and I couldn't imagine being with another man. You're being ridiculous. I can't believe you'd even think that. I apologized, agreeing with her, and resumed watching the movie. I chuckled to myself, thinking she could have been an actress with how convincing she was. No wonder she excelled at her job. Once things settled down, she leaned against my shoulder again, and I knew it was time. I grabbed my phone, opened the messaging app, and selected a photo of Kim and Jonathan kissing on the dance floor, his hand on her behind. I was studying the photo when she noticed my distraction. What are you doing, David? Why aren't you watching the movie? Because what I'm looking at is more real. What do you mean? I muted the movie and displayed the photo to her. She froze, attempting to speak, but failing. I kept my gaze on the photo. Quite the passionate kiss you're giving Jonathan. Allow me to explain. Where did you get this? You were dining with your buddy, Greg Stanton, who spotted you with that guy in the restaurant. He texted me to confirm if it was you or if he was mistaken. Turns out it was indeed you, and he sent me this. Also, gotta say, you look stunning in that dress. I've never seen you in something so revealing. Were you trying to impress your boyfriend? Oh, you have an explanation? I'm all ears, I remarked, placing the phone back on my lap. Baby, we only had one dance, and he was intoxicated. After the song ended, he grabbed me and kissed me. What you don't see is that right afterward, I slapped him and caused a scene. I would never allow that to happen. I actually bought this dress for a business dinner, but didn't realize how revealing it was until now. I'm so sorry. I understand. It happens. And that was the only incident? I sensed her wavering confidence and reassured her. Yes, baby. And he won't try it again. The movie resumed, and I reclined quietly, knowing Kim was uneasy. After a few minutes, I retrieved my phone and began playing a video of them sitting on the couch, with hand under her skirt. She shot me a frightened look. What are you watching now? Remember that night when you called, saying you had a long day and were getting ready for bed? Yes, she whispered. It's interesting. I received another text from Greg, 2 hours after your call, and this time it was a video. Do you want to see? I asked, hitting play, revealing her and Jonathan kissing, while his hands roamed her lovemaking areas that should have been mine alone. I'm eager to hear a new explanation, I remarked, smiling. My anger had dissipated, replaced by contempt and amusement at her response. Oh, David, I'm so sorry. After we hung up, Jonathan called saying we needed to discuss an issue with a client we were meeting in the morning. He asked me to meet him in the lobby to prepare. I barely recall this video because I had a few drinks and got a bit drunk. You know how I get when I'm intoxicated. I understand the video looks damning, but nothing happened beyond that. I distinctly recall going to my room, telling him to stop, reminding him I was happily married and leaving. Nothing transpired. You have to trust me. That's part of the issue, kitten, I said, emphasizing the nickname. I noticed her reaction when I said that and continued. The problem is, I've always believed you, yet in the last 20 minutes, you've lied to me twice. Can you understand my perspective? I'm here alone, and the woman I love is kissing her boss in 2 photos dressed in the most revealing outfit I've ever seen her wear. How do you think I feel, baby? David, I love you. This happened 3 months ago. Why didn't you confront me earlier? Honestly, I wanted to see if you'd come clean on your own. I wanted assurance that my wife was as truthful and transparent as we've always been with each other. But now I see where we stand. Are there any other lies? Are you involved with him? Do you love him now? I was toying with her, relishing her confusion and performance. She began sobbing, repeatedly professing her love for me. Kim, please refrain from telling me how much you love me. I know you love me and I still love you, but that doesn't change the reality of these photos. I need answers. Are there other deceptions? I added, discreetly hitting the record button on the phone. David, hear me out. Nothing beyond a kiss happened. I admit I kissed him, as you saw, but that was the extent of it. Each time I told him to stop. I'm not sure what Greg saw or told you, but you have to trust me. All right, stop crying, baby. I trust you. However, I'm puzzled by your attire. You never dress like that for me, nor do you style your hair and makeup that way. Was it for him? You haven't answered my question. Do you have feelings for him? Are you considering leaving me? Kim, please. I need the truth. The tears resumed. No, David, My love is only for you. I never want to lose you. Nothing happened. And I'm not sure why I dressed like that. It's unlike me. Perhaps it was because other women were dressed similarly, and I wanted to look as good. I'm not certain. I felt a bit insecure. I can understand that. But why didn't you inform me about Jonathan and your interactions? Since nothing truly occurred and I ended it, I didn't want to upset you. He's my superior and I couldn't risk losing my job. If anything happened, if it truly did, I would have told you immediately. You understand, right? I comforted her with a kiss and embraced her gently, allowing her to cry. This marked the beginning of a month-long scheme to exact my revenge. That night, we made love, and I reveled in her remarkable skills, detached as her spouse, and envisioning myself as one of her lovers. I refused to deny myself her body or caution her about anything peculiar. Her acting was commendable, but at that moment I was indifferent. She was more fervent than ever, attempting to convince me of my exclusive place in her heart. This routine persisted for the following weeks. Each night her performance was flawless, and I simply savored the spectacle. The next morning I checked the cloud for any correspondence with Jonathan. Predictably, she didn't disappoint. Oh my God, someone took photos of us at the fair and sent them to David. His friend saw me at the restaurant without David. I'm unsure if he's aware, but the video showed us kissing. Damn. Now that you mention it, I recall a man with a phone across from us observing, but I didn't think much of it. How did David react? Nothing. I convinced him nothing happened. I intervened. He's unaware I spent the night in your room. I persuaded him it was drinks-induced and made amends. He's easily swayed. A few kisses and good lovemaking have always sufficed. Be cautious, baby. We agreed to meet there tomorrow at 1 p.m., as usual. Can't wait. Love you, baby. Love you too, kitten. That marked the final message, and I sat silently pondering it all. Undoubtedly, I felt like the world's biggest fool. Yet, there's a certain satisfaction in revenge, so I proceeded with determination. However, I took pleasure in observing Kim's antics and awaited to see how many more lies she would spin. Naturally, my first course of action was to tend to my financial affairs, transferring funds, closing accounts, and the like. I opted to keep my primary Visa card active, but slashed the limit to $2,500 to mitigate potential damage. Since Kim remained clueless about my mounting anger, she never anticipated any changes. I confirmed with my lawyer that since the house was mine pre-marriage, I wouldn't be compelled to vacate upon notification. Naturally, I drafted the infamous email containing videos, texts, and photos that I eventually sent to all her contacts, friends, family, and coworkers. Additionally, I crafted duplicate binders from my personal account for Mrs. Sinclair and Mrs. Wilkes to share in their anguish. These would be distributed simultaneously with notifications and legal filings. I instructed my lawyer to gear up for public civil lawsuits against both Jonathan, her boss, and Jason, the company's CEO. Given the company's prominence on the East Coast, my lawyer relished the prospect of involving the CEO. We planned to propose a settlement before unveiling the CEO and manager's alleged carnal aggravation of employees. Collaborating with child services attorneys, we aimed for full custody and diligently compiled documents for the investigation. Over the ensuing weeks, everything appeared normal. We tended to the children and spent quality time together daily. Our conversations danced around the elephant in the room, leaving the issue untouched. I'm certain my silence on the matter drove her to the brink of madness. The uncertainty of my thoughts must have been agonizing. To further toy with Kim, I posed a few probing questions. So Kim, has your boss taken any action against you since the fair? Is there something you'd like to share? Having gleaned insights from her conversations with Jonathan, I marveled at her composure in maintaining her facade of deceit. It was amusing to observe her reaction, and now I could even predict when she was about to lie. She responded calmly, stating that nothing had occurred. It felt odd because both of us were acting as if nothing had transpired, which was true. In reality, he remained completely professional, and our interactions were minimal due to our busy schedules. I sat there with a wry smile, still astonished that the woman who bore my children and whom I loved could lie so effortlessly. That night, I released the last remnants of the anger simmering within me. I confronted her and took full advantage of her that night. "Oh my God, David, what got into you? You're behaving so wildly today. I've never seen you so bold and uninhibited. I enjoyed it." What a whirlwind, I thought to myself. I knew this would be the final encounter before all of this turmoil surfaced the next day, and I intended to take everything I could from my soon-to-be ex-wife. That afternoon, the sheriff entered the offices of Tricom International and requested to see Mr. Sinclair. Moments later, Sheriff Clark handed him an envelope. "Mr. Sinclair, you've been served." A moment later, Sinclair found himself alone in his spacious office, clutching the envelope with fear gripping his entire being. After reading the complaint repeatedly, he promptly instructed his secretary to summon Jason to his office, while simultaneously calling him. Jason, too, had just been served by the same sheriff. He rushed into Sinclair's office, and they both stood there, stunned and bewildered. "What the hell? How did this happen? Jason, if my wife catches wind of this, I'm finished. This is on you. You assured me this woman would never leave us. Fix this, Jason, or I swear I'll ruin you and your family. Do you understand?" Sinclair was not one to be trifled with. A ruthless businessman who had clawed his way to the top of the multi-billion-dollar organization and had no intention of backing down. Jonathan hurried out of his office and waited for the elevator to descend to the 12th floor, intending to speak with Kim. As he traversed the hallway toward her office, he noticed the sheriff approaching from the opposite direction, indicating that he had come from Kim's direction. Bursting into her office, he found her seated at her desk, tears streaming down her face. Overwhelmed with emotion, she was unable to speak. David had shattered her world, much like she had done to him months earlier. It took her more than an hour to compose herself enough to articulate her thoughts. "Akeem, what in the world happened? How did he find out about everything? What do you mean?" "I've just been served with divorce papers. What do you mean by us?" "Sinclair and I are also being sued and facing a civil lawsuit for our actions. We're unsure of the evidence against us, but there must be more than just the 2 images you saw. You need to convince David to back off, or else Sinclair will ruin us and my family." "Oh my God, this is terrible. It's awful. You must go to him and make him see reason. Do whatever it takes to halt this. Head home and address this. Call me tonight if you can and keep me informed." Trembling, Kim packed her belongings and drove home. Her beloved husband and the father of her children was divorcing her. She didn't want a divorce and genuinely loved David. However, she found herself unable to resist the allure of carnal excitement. She needed to make David understand that she couldn't bear to lose him over this. Returning to an empty house, she found the girls were at David's sister's house, as they were every afternoon while they both worked. She phoned David's sister, requesting if she could keep the children overnight. Without inquiring further, Katie gladly agreed to take care of the girls for the night. Kim showered, styled her hair and makeup, and anxiously awaited David's return from work. At 6 o'clock, she heard the garage door open and nervously anticipated his entrance into the house. "Hi, Kim. Didn't expect to see you tonight. Thought you'd be with Jonathan." "Oh, wait, he's married with kids. This might get awkward." "David, please, let's talk." She took his hand and seated him beside her on the sofa. Despite the circumstances, she appeared surprisingly composed and more pleasant than usual when greeting him. Expecting this, he played along. "David, as you already know, I was served today. But do you realize I don't want a divorce? I need you and love you. I won't sign these papers. Jonathan means nothing to me. Yes, we had lovemaking, but it wasn't love. I just needed it, and I'm truly sorry. I'll never do it again, I promise." "Oh, you promise? Guess I can trust you now." "Sure, let's forget everything and get back to normal," I said, smiling lovingly. Kim embraced me and planted a kiss. "Thank you, baby. I love you so much. I'm grateful you forgive me and understand I won't lie to you again." Surprised, I was certain she caught my sarcasm. Pulling away, I gently pushed her aside. "You're delusional. I can't trust you anymore. After all your lies and deceit, there's nothing left. I gave you many chances, but you kept lying, deceiving me and ruining our lives. I know all about your daily hotel rendezvous with your bosses. Did you really think I'd take you back after all this? Have you even considered the damage you're causing to the girls? I can't turn a blind eye to this. But you can. And why go after Sinclair and Jonathan? Well, your partners in crime are also CEOs of a multi-billion-dollar company. Once I'm out of here, I'll need money to properly support the girls. Since they're partly responsible for destroying our marriage and my life, I'll destroy them too. I plan to dismantle their family, hit them financially, and use them the way they used you." Kim had never witnessed David express himself in such a manner, nor had she seen him so intensely angry and focused. The seriousness of the situation finally struck her, and she realized she had lost control over both the situation and her husband. All she could do now was plead. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she knelt before David, clutching his legs, begging for forgiveness. Though David felt a pang of sympathy for her, his anger overpowered any compassion, and he lifted her onto the sofa. Speaking to her in a gentle tone, as if she were a child, David laid out a plan. Listen, Kim, pack your bag and stay at your mom's for a few nights. Get a lawyer, then we can arrange a meeting to discuss everything. In the meantime, a word to the wise. I suggest you stay away from Jason and Jonathan. Things are about to get messy. Later that evening at her mom's, she explained that she and David had a disagreement and she needed to stay with her for a while. At 11 p.m., she called Jonathan on his cell. Jonathan quickly looped in Jason on a three-way call. Jason, are you here? Kim, are you there? Yes, we are here, Sinclair initiated the conversation. So, Kim, did you manage to persuade him to give up the lawsuits and the divorce? No. In fact, he kicked me out and warned me to be careful because it could lead to trouble. Sinclair shouted into the phone, Jesus Christ, Jonathan, what have you done? Kim, you're a freaking prick. I swear I will have you and Jonathan eliminated if my family finds out about this. I don't care what you do, but make it stop. Kim cried, I can't do anything. He is out of control and won't listen to anything I say. He doesn't even answer my calls or texts. Sinclair spoke up. Jonathan, you need to fix this. Make an appointment with David and have him meet us at a bar somewhere. Anything loud and the noisier the better. Kim, you will be there too and ask him to drop the lawsuit in front of us. If he says no, then Jonathan and I will explain how damaging it will be for him and his family if he doesn't back down. I have people tasked with fixing things like this, and I won't hesitate to use them to keep this show from turning into complete crap. Jonathan, do you understand what you need to do? Yes, Mr. Sinclair. Kim, you know what you have to do, right? Yes, Mr. Sinclair. Do it and make it happen tomorrow afternoon. We don't have time to waste. Sinclair disappeared. Kim and Jonathan hung up after a few minutes considering the situation. That night, upon hearing the call, David wasn't surprised by their desperation and devised his own plan. As expected, Jonathan called the next morning to arrange a settlement meeting. They agreed to meet at 6 p.m. in a courtyard. At 4 p.m., David was at his private investigator's office, preparing for the meeting. They utilized cutting-edge technology with noise cancellation to capture clear sound, even in noisy environments. A private investigator would also be present to film the meeting as evidence. David arrived at 6:15, purposefully keeping them waiting and allowing time for the private investigator to set up his video camera. Upon seeing Kim, he approached the group. Kim, I'm surprised to see you here with your partners, but I suppose we know where your allegiance lies. Gentlemen, what brings us together? Why are we here? Sinclair spoke up. David, I'm Jason Sinclair, and I requested this meeting. Sinclair, you look quite different in person. These videos don't capture your essence. Can't say it's a pleasure to meet you. Indeed, that's precisely why we're here. This is Jonathan Wilkes. Jonathan, the man who slept with my wife and wrecked my marriage. Can't say it's a pleasure to meet any of you. Sinclair interjected, I understand your anger. If I were in your shoes, I'm not sure how I'd react. But we need to discuss something. Follow me. What's on your mind? Asked David. We want you to drop the lawsuits against me, Jonathan, and the company. Funny, that's all. Oh no, sorry, can't do that. Someone has to pay for taking away the most important thing in my life, David stated, looking at Kim. The only woman I've ever loved, and the mother of my children. Kim began to cry, realizing the magnitude of the damage she had caused. What will it take for you to end this and take Kim back? Name your price. Firstly, no amount of money could ever make me take her back. She betrayed my love, trust, and our children's lives for a fling with you two. It's out of the question. I'll drop the civil and corporate cases under two conditions. Firstly, I want $5 million compensation. Secondly, I want to meet both your wives, and Kim must fully admit her actions. If you agree to these conditions, I'll end the legal proceedings. Go to hell, David. I'll offer you $100,000, and you'll sign an agreement to keep quiet about this forever, Sinclair whispered. I won't let my family suffer. If they find out, David, I'll end you. Kim told us your daily routine, making you vanish would be easy. Let's try again. David was surprised, but smiled and took a sip of his drink. Well, I'll reduce the amount to $4 million, but your families must know what you did. Sinclair was stunned. David, you're sealing your fate. Think it over. Drop the charges and take Kim back. It was just a fling. We can resolve this. David grabbed his phone and sent 2 text messages. Then he accessed his email and dispatched the prearranged email containing all the videos and images. Texts had now been distributed to all of Kim's friends, family, and colleagues. The 2 messages he sent were to the couriers stationed outside Jason and Jonathan's residences, awaiting his directives. The instructions were simple: deliver the package. Within moments, Mrs. Sinclair and Mrs. Wilkes possessed duplicate 3-ring binders containing comprehensive evidence of their husband's affair, including photos, videos, messages, phone logs, and other incriminating evidence. Sinclair, growing increasingly irate due to David's apparent indifference, erupted in anger. "What the hell, David? I'm speaking to you. What's your response? Are you dropping the charges?" To which David retorted, "My answer to you, Jason, Jonathan, and my wife is go to hell." Just then, the phones of both Jason and Jonathan began to ring. It was their wives on the line. Sinclair's face reddened, shooting David a glare of fury. Jonathan, visibly shaken, even teared up. Kim, bewildered, questioned David about the commotion. His response was cryptic. "Check your email in a few minutes, and I believe you'll understand." After ending the call with his wife, Sinclair pointed an accusatory finger at David. "You're dead, David. I'll slit your throat and watch you die like a dog." With that threat, he stormed out of the bar. Jonathan, confronting David, uttered a plaintive, "Why? Why would you do this to me?" David was astounded by the question. "Seriously? You've been using my wife, the love of my life, and the mother of my twin girls, every day for the past 6 months, arranging trysts with Sinclair. And you're surprised someone would retaliate? Everything I sent to your sweet wife was for her sake, to expose what a depraved beast of prey you are and how you've destroyed countless lives." Kim's phone began ringing as her sister, brother, and aunt called her shortly afterward. They all watched the videos and photos and had numerous questions. Initially, Kim denied knowledge of the situation, but then checked her email to see what I had sent. Her jaw dropped, and she shot me an angry look. "How could you do this to me? You've made it too easy. Darling, I truly love you, but it's over between us. After I hand this audio recording of the meeting to the authorities and social services, my lawyer is confident I'll secure full custody of the girls, and you'll be fortunate to evade jail time. I'm sorry, but you must face the consequences of your actions to prevent them from becoming public knowledge." Tricom resolved the lawsuit by compensating David Hunter with $2 million. Jason Sinclair was ousted as CEO and terminated without severance due to breaching the morals clause in his contract. He suffered losses exceeding $10 million in stock options and forfeited a $5 million severance package. Sinclair also received a 5-year sentence for conspiracy to commit homicide and other charges. His wife divorced him while he was incarcerated and financially decimated him upon investigation of his business dealings. He exited prison destitute, bereft of family, and homeless. This news provided David with some solace, and he even cracked a smile for the first time in months. Mrs. Wilkes also divorced Jonathan, leaving him without money, shelter, child support, or half of his income in alimony. He was fined $1 million in a civil trial for conspiracy, infidelity, and loss of affection. Following his job loss, Jonathan resorted to working as a day laborer. Learning of Jonathan's downfall further gratified David, who took pleasure in Jonathan's subsequent bankruptcy and life under an overpass among day workers. Kim received a 5-year prison sentence, but with David's assistance, it was commuted to 1 year of house arrest, followed by 4 years of probation for conspiracy. She lost custody of the children, and David gained full custody. Despite her efforts, she failed to secure a divorce due to the evidence and the nature of the crime. With the house belonging to David, she found herself homeless upon termination. She earned the same amount as David, so no child support was necessary. Kim spiraled into a profound depression and now resides in her mother's basement. Her family turned against her for her actions, resulting in the loss of her visitation rights with her children. The email I sent with the attached videos and photos exposed a dark side of Kim that no one had recognized before. This had the intended effect, completely shattering the support network within the Kim family. Forgiveness seems unattainable for Kim, even from herself. She relies on medication following 3 self-destruction attempts and has been in and out of mental hospitals for the past 6 months, struggling to come to terms with the lives she contributed to destroying. David now dedicates all his time to his daughters. Being free from work post-divorce allows him to focus entirely on raising his children. Since Kim's self-destruction attempt, the girls have not seen their mother, but they receive ample support from David's sister and mother. They will recover from this traumatic ordeal without any lasting effects. While revenge brought a fleeting sense of satisfaction, it cannot fully heal David's wounds. He still harbors love and forgiveness for Kim, but The memory of her betrayal remains etched in his mind. Taking care of his daughters keeps him occupied and wards off loneliness. However, due to the betrayal, lies, and deceit, it will take years before David can open his heart to love and trust again. It's remarkable how seemingly insignificant actions can have profound effects on numerous lives. Caution is advised.
My name is Jennifer, and I'm a 30-year-old interior designer living in Charlotte, North Carolina. Life once felt so secure. I had supportive parents, a blossoming career, and a husband I adored. But everything changed when I lost my parents unexpectedly. They left me a remarkable legacy, a breathtaking mansion worth $50 million, filled with memories and their dreams for my future. My husband, Harper, and I moved into this mansion soon after their passing. Each room was a reminder of my family's love and dedication. I was determined to honor their legacy by making this house our sanctuary, a place to build our dreams and eventually start a family. Harper, a 37-year-old project manager, initially seemed supportive, sharing my excitement as we settled in. But his attitude shifted when his mother, Charlotte, learned about the inheritance. What began as warm congratulations quickly turned into something more self-serving. Charlotte started hinting at family support and the idea of sharing in each other's fortune. One afternoon, as I was finalizing a new interior design project, Charlotte showed up unannounced. Her demeanor was assertive. She didn't waste time, proposing a plan that took me aback. Charlotte wanted $12 million to buy herself a luxurious home, suggesting it was only fair she too should experience the lifestyle I was lucky enough to inherit. Her reasoning: as family, she claimed, she deserved a share of the fortune I'd inherited. Jennifer, she said with a tight smile, think of it as an investment in our family's future. After all, if you're able to live in luxury, why shouldn't we all? I was stunned. Keeping calm, I explained that I couldn't, in good conscience, give away such a large amount from my inheritance. This house was part of my family's legacy, and I had specific plans to preserve it. Her face darkened. So, you don't care about supporting your family? She retorted. She turned to Harper, attempting to involve him in the conversation. Doesn't it seem fair, Harper, that Jennifer would want to share some of what she's been given? Harper looked uncomfortable, visibly caught between his mother and me. He'd always been close to her, and I could see she was trying to pull him to her side. Jennifer, Harper said hesitantly, glancing between us, maybe we should at least talk about it. I felt my heart sink. The man who had once been my rock now seemed to be wavering. The weight of their expectations felt like a heavy burden. Please, Harper, I said, holding my ground. This house is more than just wealth. It's my parents' legacy. They worked hard to build this. It's not simply about money, it's about honoring their memory. I can't just give up such a large portion on a whim. Charlotte's eyes narrowed, her tone growing colder. A whim, Jennifer. Don't forget that you wouldn't have had anyone to lean on if it weren't for our family's support after your parents passed. And this is how you repay us. My pulse quickened, yet I kept my composure. Charlotte, I value the support you've shown me, but that doesn't mean I owe you $12 million for a luxury home. I am more than willing to help in other ways, but not in this manner. She glared at Harper, her frustration evident. Is this the woman you chose to marry, Harper? Someone who cares more about money than about family? Harper shifted uncomfortably, his gaze dropping to the floor. Jennifer, she's not asking for the entire inheritance. It's just a portion. Maybe we can compromise. My heart ached. The man I once believed would always stand by my side was now faltering. Harper, this isn't something I'm willing to compromise on. This house and the inheritance mean everything to me. I've already sacrificed a lot, and I won't be pressured into giving away what my parents worked so hard for." Charlotte scoffed, her voice tinged with contempt. "Typical. You get a little money, and suddenly you think you're better than us. Family doesn't hoard, family shares." With that, she stormed out, leaving a tense silence behind. I looked to Harper, hoping he'd see my perspective, but his silence only deepened my frustration. Over the following days, Charlotte's attitude grew colder, her visits marked by icy remarks about selfishness and family obligations. Harper, rather than standing up for me, grew distant, caught between his mother's demands and my resolve. One evening, Charlotte arrived with Harper's sister, Amanda. It felt like an ambush, and I braced myself as they sat in the living room, their expressions hardened. Charlotte wasted no time. "Jennifer," she began sharply, "it's clear you don't understand family obligations. We're family, and we should all benefit from your good fortune. $12 million is a fair request, but you continue to refuse. It's incredibly selfish." Amanda joined in, her voice dripping with disdain. "It's not right for you to keep everything while we struggle. Don't you see how that makes you look?" I looked over to Harper, hoping he'd step in, but he sat silently, avoiding eye contact. Taking a deep breath, I replied, "This inheritance was meant to secure my future, not to fulfill demands that have nothing to do with actual needs. I won't apologize for protecting what my parents left for me." Charlotte's face flushed with anger. She stood abruptly, eyes blazing. "You think you're better than us because of this money, don't you? You wouldn't have anything if it weren't for this family support." I tried to keep my cool, but her words struck a nerve. "I've helped where I can, but that doesn't mean I'll hand over millions because you demand it." At that, Charlotte's patience snapped. In a swift, furious motion, she reached out and slapped me hard across the face. I staggered back, shocked, feeling the sting on my cheek. "How dare you disrespect me," she spat, her face twisted with fury. "You don't understand loyalty or family," Amanda sneered, her tone venomous. "You don't belong here, Jennifer. This house would be better without you." Steadying myself, I held back the rush of emotions. "Get out of my house," I said firmly, my voice low but unyielding. "You've crossed every boundary, and I won't tolerate this any longer." Harper stood by, frozen in shock, torn between loyalty to his mother and his commitment to me. But instead of defending me, he looked away, refusing to meet my gaze. As Charlotte and Amanda left without a hint of remorse, I felt a surge of strength. Straightening myself, I touched my cheek, the sting reminding me of how far they had pushed me. "Harper," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and determination. "Are you really going to let this happen? Your family just attacked me in our home, and you're standing here saying nothing." Harper looked torn, his voice barely a whisper. "Jennifer, maybe if you just listened, this wouldn't have happened." His words hurt deeper than the slap. "So you think I deserve this?" I asked, my voice filled with disbelief. "You're willing to let them treat me like this and then blame me for it?" Charlotte's words echoed in the air as she walked out, her voice sharp. "This isn't over, Jennifer. Either you give us what we're due, or you'll regret it." I felt my patience snap. "I've had enough. You can't bully me into handing over what's mine, and if you won't leave willingly, I'll ensure you're forced out." I took a deep breath, pulling out my phone and dialing my lawyer. Charlotte's face twisted in fury as she tried to snatch my phone, but I stepped back, keeping it out of her reach. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "You're turning against family." "You'll regret this, Jennifer," Amanda added. "No one goes against us and wins." Holding up my hand, I stopped them. "I've heard enough. Leave my house now. If you come here again without my permission, I'll involve the authorities." Charlotte scoffed, her expression defiant. We'll see about that. With a final glare, Charlotte and Amanda stormed out, leaving an oppressive silence in their wake. Harper lingered for a moment, casting one last conflicted look in my direction before following them out, leaving me standing alone in my home. As soon as they left, the weight of what had happened hit me. I had been attacked in my own home, and Harper, the man who had once promised to stand by me, had chosen his family over me. The betrayal felt like a physical blow, but I knew I couldn't allow them to intimidate me into giving up my inheritance. I picked up my phone and called Mr. Thomas, my lawyer, explaining the entire situation. He listened patiently, his voice calm and reassuring. "Jennifer," he said, "it sounds like your in-laws are attempting to exploit your inheritance. We can take immediate legal steps to secure your property and prevent any further harassment. My advice is to file for a restraining order against them. This will ensure they cannot approach you or the mansion without serious consequences." Relief washed over me. "Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'll gather any documents you need right away. I just want to ensure they can't pull any more stunts like this." "Good plan," he replied. "Also, document everything that happened today, including the physical attack and any witnesses if possible. This will help us build a strong case." Determined, I spent the next few hours gathering all relevant paperwork, property deeds, my parents' will, and any documents proving my sole ownership of the mansion. I carefully documented every detail of the confrontation, including Charlotte's physical assault and Harper's refusal to intervene. The following day, I met with Mr. Thomas at his office. I handed over the paperwork, and he quickly filed for a restraining order against Charlotte, Amanda, and anyone else who attempted to violate my rights to the property. Within days, the restraining order was in place, and for the first time in a while, I felt a sense of peace. However, Harper's behavior only became more distant. He avoided eye contact, spent most of his time at his mother's, and showed no signs of remorse for his family's actions. One evening, Harper returned home, looking somber. He sat across from me, fidgeting uncomfortably. "Jennifer, this whole situation has gotten out of hand," he began. "My family feels betrayed. Can't we find a way to resolve this without dragging it through the courts?" I looked at him, my patience thinning. "Harper, your family has crossed every boundary imaginable. Charlotte physically attacked me, and you stood by saying nothing. This isn't just a disagreement, it's about protecting what's rightfully mine." He sighed, looking away. "I just don't want to lose my family." I could feel the pain in my voice as I replied, "And what about me, Harper? I was supposed to be your family too. You're asking me to give up my parents' legacy as if it means nothing. Is that what family loyalty looks like to you?" He didn't respond, and after a tense silence, he stood up and walked away, leaving me with a heavy heart yet more resolute than ever. Days passed, and I focused on reinforcing my boundaries. I was determined to protect my inheritance and my parents' legacy, even if it meant standing alone. Harper grew more withdrawn, choosing to spend most of his time with Charlotte and Amanda. Just when I thought things had finally quieted down, Charlotte made an even bolder move. One afternoon, she arrived at the mansion with Amanda and Harper's brother, Jeremy. To my shock, they had brought movers and were prepared to take possession of the house as if they had every right to it. Watching them from the window, fury and disbelief surged through me. How could they blatantly ignore the restraining order and assume they were above the law? Without hesitation, I picked up my phone and dialed 911. "Hello, this is Jennifer Blake," I said calmly. "My in-laws are trespassing on my property despite a court-ordered restraining order. They've even brought movers to forcefully enter my home. I need the police here immediately." The dispatcher assured me that officers were on their way. Steeling myself, I went outside to confront them, unwilling to let them bully me further. Charlotte spotted me, her face twisted in disdain. "Jennifer, stop this nonsense. This is a family matter, and the police have no place here. If you had an ounce of decency, you'd share what you have. I held my ground, my voice steady. This is my home, and you have no right to take it from me. Amanda stepped forward, her tone mocking. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Jennifer. Just hand over the $12 million and make it easier on everyone. Before I could respond, I heard sirens approaching. Charlotte's face paled as the reality of the situation sank in. The police arrived, assessing the scene with serious expressions. I approached one of the officers and handed over the restraining order. Officer, these individuals have been ordered by the court to stay away from my property. They're violating that order and attempting to seize my home, I explained. The officer nodded and turned towards Charlotte, Amanda, and Jeremy with a stern look. Ma'am, you are trespassing on private property and are in violation of a court-issued restraining order. You must leave immediately, or we will be forced to take legal action. Charlotte's voice turned shrill as she protested. This is family business. You have no right to interfere. The officer remained resolute. If you refuse to comply, you will be arrested. Reluctantly, Charlotte stepped back, her eyes seething with fury as she glared at me. This isn't over, Jennifer. You'll regret turning your back on this family. I met her gaze with newfound strength. You're no longer welcome here, Charlotte. This is my home, and I won't let anyone take it from me. As the officers escorted them off the property, I felt a wave of relief. I had taken a stand, defending what was mine against those who sought to manipulate and control me. After that day, I felt something shift inside me. The confrontation had been exhausting, but it also marked the end of an era. I realized I could no longer share my life with someone who allowed his family to trample over my dignity and boundaries. The betrayal ran too deep, and I knew it was time to make a clean break for the sake of my peace and future. Later that evening, Harper returned, looking tired and conflicted. I could tell he'd heard about what happened from his mother. His face held a mixture of anger and sorrow as he approached me. Jennifer, he began softly, we can't keep doing this. This isn't the life I envisioned for us. My family is hurt and feels abandoned. Isn't there a way we can avoid all this legal conflict? I looked at him, feeling a mix of sadness and clarity. Harper, I gave your family every opportunity to respect my boundaries. I tried to find common ground, but they refused to listen. Your mother physically attacked me, and you just stood there. This isn't just a family disagreement, it's a matter of safety, respect, and protecting what's rightfully mine. Harper sighed, unable to meet my gaze. I just don't want to lose my family, he muttered. And what about me, Harper? I replied, my voice trembling with emotion. I was supposed to be your family too. But every time they made demands, you chose them over me. Is that the kind of loyalty I'm supposed to accept? A heavy silence filled the room as my words settled over him. Harper shifted uncomfortably and finally seemed to understand that this was the end. His shoulders slumped, and he nodded slightly, unable to hold my gaze. I guess I can't undo what's already happened, he whispered, almost to himself. No, Harper, I replied gently. And I can't keep sacrificing my peace for a relationship that's one-sided. It's time for both of us to move forward. With that, I asked him to gather his belongings and leave the mansion. There were no arguments, no pleas to reconsider. Within hours, he was gone, and I stood alone in the quiet of the mansion. Though I felt the weight of the decision, I also sensed a newfound lightness, knowing I had reclaimed control over my life. In the following weeks, I channeled my energy into rebuilding. I hired contractors to restore and redesign parts of the mansion, transforming it into a reflection of my resilience and independence. Each room became a tribute to my journey, each piece of art or furniture a symbol of my strength and new beginnings. The mansion, once a solemn reminder of my parents' legacy, was now a sanctuary, a place of empowerment and freedom. I reconnected with friends, poured myself into my work, and even began volunteering in local art programs to give back to the community. With every step forward, I felt the weight of the past lift, replaced by a sense of quiet confidence and joy I hadn't known in years. One evening, as I watched the sunset from the mansion's grand balcony, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. The journey had been painful, but I had emerged stronger, more self-assured, and ready to embrace the life I had fought so hard to protect. This mansion was no longer just a house, it was a testament to my courage and a reminder of the strength I possessed to stand on my own. For the first time in years, I was ready to move forward, knowing that my life was now entirely my own and that I had the power to shape my destiny, free from the shadows of the past. If you enjoyed Jennifer's story of strength and resilience, don't forget to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Stay tuned for the next tale of unexpected twists and unforgettable moments.